that Jeffrey was different from the other kids. He started wearing glasses for computer strain when he was just 3.5, and he already has some pretty significant tendinitis.
I've always wanted to work at Maverick Recruiting.
The data entry whiz is at the center of a bidding war between industry titans like Workforce Solutions and Metropolitan Staffing, both offering lavish perks like starting salaries of up to $15,000 and a cramped cubicle shared with only 2 other temps. Jeffrey's parents say that given the generous offers he's already received, he could be well on the way to affording a dingy rundown apartment of his own.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. You can call in with whatever's on your mind. We already have some people on the line, but there's still room for you. That number is 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live, and there are no taboo topics. None at all.
Oh, yeah, there are.
Yeah, I don't know if I go that far in saying that.
You can bring up whatever you want. But
FCC has some certain prohibitions.
well, yeah, okay, that's not a topic. Well, with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Mr. Penguin.
And Mark Edge.
And let's just go right into the phones. When the title of the show tonight, I titled it Trump's Third Term, so we're going to get into that. But first, let's get into whatever the callers want to talk about. Alu in Virginia, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I want to respond to Skeeter and Stefan from last week, who seemed to be pretty much pure utilitarians, meaning their philosophy seems to be that maximizing efficiency in general of the world is not the highest ideal that humans should have, and it's all about efficiency. And I think Skeeter made some decent points to that end, but obviously as a principled voluntarist, I'm more about the principles of liberty more so than efficiency. So even in a world where voluntarist principles were not the most efficient, for instance, if zero taxes was not the most efficient way to have society, I would still support it on principle. So I would love to debate one day in my dreams at some liberty event or something. I would love to debate like these ultra-utilitarians like Skeeter and Stefan and the others.
Just not Skeeter himself, that'd be...
Yeah, I would agree with you, man. I'm always amazed that like some people are like, they say they're libertarian, and I'm like, no, you're more conservative than you are libertarian.
There's like a deeper rabbit hole to go down where I completely respect the opinion of people who say, listen, I agree with the non-aggression principle, but ultimately what is it derived from? It's ultimately because doing that is best for me and for society. And I can understand why they think that, but there are definitely scenarios, and you'll tell them like, well, what about this scenario? This was against the non-aggression principle, but it was best for me and possibly best for more people, only bad for like you, and it's still wrong. Am I making sense there? That's why I agree with you, Alu.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's not about efficiency. At first it was, when I was conservative and libertarian, it was about maximizing the best outcomes. Again, it's utilitarian, it's outcome-based. Lower taxes or a tax at around 12% of GDP is maybe the most efficient because it gets the most people to pay, but also lets people be productive enough to be incentivized to be productive. But again, once I became a principled voluntarist, anarcho-capitalist, I realized that on principle, theft is wrong. I don't care if theft should be efficient.
I would say that what's wrong is not abiding by the rules of a system that you have opted into, right? And I get that it's very difficult to opt out of this system as it exists today, and maybe impossible. However, once those that would rule us allow libertarians to have a little, libertarians like you, to have a little enclave where they do what they want to do, and then create some kind of competition for the rest of it, then at that point, I think, there's nothing wrong with creating whatever system you want to have. So I think what is best is what works. If liberty doesn't work, and we don't know because no one's ever let people try it. We have a lot of evidence that in a lot of ways it works, but maybe there's some aspect that just it devolves into some kind of chaos.
Yeah, Mark, I mean, I think the answer to this is sort of along the lines of we need liberty to find out what the best system is, right? Without liberty, without different options, we'll never know. Right.
You have to be able to leave, and you have to be able to take your property with you. The government, as it exists, all 200 nations around the world have a monopoly claim on the land within their polygon. Right? They say ultimately this is ours. And let me walk that back for people who don't quite understand what I'm saying when I say it. So you think you own your land.
No, you don't.
However, you pay an amount of money to keep that land every year.
You rent it. Yeah, property taxes.
It's probably something more than what we call renting, but it's a lot like renting. It's a fee for exclusive lease or something. And as soon as you lose that lease when you don't pay. Then the town or municipality, the county, it depends on where you are, how it works. But the overriding county kind of takes most of that funds, but then the state does too. Now, a state is defined as, and this is a definition, an organization that claims a monopoly privilege over use of violence in a given landmass. That's their land. Now, that state belongs to the United States. The United States says, if you, the state, leave, we will come and kill your ass. And they did it once, and they're willing to do it again. Obama threatened it when, I can't remember which state had some petition on the change.org website.
Maybe Texas, but I don't know if he threatened it, but he did say, he said, oh, that was already settled in the Civil War.
Yeah.
Right. So what,
that sounds like a threat.
That was settled in the Civil War means
that's a threat.
We, the federal government, will come and kill you if you attempt to leave. So ultimately, the federal government claims over the states that they can't leave, and then the states pay in, their people, their livestock have to pay in tax to the federal government, and there's no way to get out of that. A state can't say, you know what, Wyomans have decided that we no longer wish to pay income tax. And it'd be interesting if somebody tried it, but heretofore, that can't be done.
You mean federal income tax?
Federal income tax, yeah. I don't know if there's a Wyoming income tax. I should have picked a state that didn't have one.
I don't know.
For sure. Florida. If Florida says, we're not going to pay that income tax, and, tough. It'd be interesting to see how that would all work out. But ultimately, freedom is the freedom to leave, to opt out of a given system. So I would say the most moral system is a system that works. But I don't think you can keep somebody who has a different opinion than I do. I have no right to hold Alu at gunpoint and say, you must pay your taxes to a government that I think is superior.
Or that works. What does works even really mean?
What does it mean? We don't know.
Like the Department of Government Efficiency kind of scares us.
What was that, Alu?
It's collectivist and it's utilitarian. What works for everyone. Like, I think there were debates about Social Security. Some other caller, maybe it was Steve Stephen, says in history of existence of the universe, and it works so well. Again, for you and for old people who are down on their luck and or didn't want to save for retirement because they relied on the Ponzi scheme known as Social Security.
Yep.
But not for me because I have to pay into it, and it's not there because they robbed it. And also, if I would have invested in anything else, including any index fund like the S&P, for 50 years, I would have like exponentially more money than Social Security would even claim to pay me out. And they tax Social Security again when they give it to you, which is funny. So that's the issue with collectivism. Mark, you sounded kind of utilitarian when you said you support whatever works best. And I can understand that in a sense. But what works best for you may not work best for me because we're different people, we're individuals. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Ultimately, countries will use violence against each other. And my concern, one of my major concerns with sort of a very free place is how do they build a culture that says, we're one? How do they do that? They don't have a public school system. They don't have these kind of things that build a culture to some extent. And I'm not sure that the culture of the United States is what it used to be, and maybe it's torn apart too. I don't know. But what I can say is that the societies that have the strongest cultural cohesion often have some of the best militaries. So I don't know how things would work in this freer place, but I'm a voluntarist in so much as I believe that if you force a person to exist within your society, then it may or may not work.
And we're going to find out from Roger Vere's case if you are actually allowed to leave.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Hello?
Oh, he dropped off.
Okay.
We were here. It was getting kind of spotty. I didn't notice that he dropped off, but yeah, it was getting kind of spotty. So I think maybe he was like driving and drove into a place with like a dead zone. So
these things happen.
Yeah, this is New Hampshire.
Silence. I thought he was going to say something. But yeah, I think the call he's referring to with the person, I think he said his name was it wasn't Zephin, but it sounds like that. Like Stefan or something.
Stefan, yeah.
Stefan, the one that he's talking about, definitely has told us he's a utilitarian. And he said that his idea is basically that whatever creates the best good for like everyone is the best thing to do.
I mean, that doesn't even make any sense because
it's too hard to define.
It's well, I mean, what's good for you is not necessarily good for me, right?
Exactly. Like the Democrat signs that they put in their yard that say Democrats for the common good. I mean, there's no such thing.
Yeah, this is a problem with government being, basically of any size, right? I mean, the more government, the larger it gets, the worse it is for everybody, because it doesn't work for anybody well. Whereas a smaller government is the better, what you do with your own resources ends up, being, the best thing. It's going to be the most efficient thing. You're not going to waste money on things. If somebody's giving you a bad deal, you're not going to waste money with them. You're going to spend that money somewhere else, where they're offering a service or a product that's more efficient.
The common good is the slipperiest of slippery slopes. So first, when you have the common good, people say, yeah, well, the crippled people, the blind people, the pregnant women. Mm-hmm. Somebody has to take care of these people who cannot take care of themselves. And, okay, when you're talking about a small group of people, 10%, a society can handle that without any difficulty paying to support those people. But then when you teach somebody that they can not work and still survive, have a relatively good life or whatever, then other people see it. So there's, that 10%. And then the next 10%.
I wonder how many people got the welfare bug during COVID, because so many people I knew that were not on welfare before did the $600 a week thing. And they're making tons of money, and I didn't succumb to it. I just kept doing Uber Eats, and you can make bank at the time during like the actual beginning of the pandemic. But I still feel good about the fact, even if I made less than those people, don't care. I didn't go join welfare.
Yeah, you didn't steal from other people unnecessarily, even. And
I wonder how many of those people just never quit doing that because they're like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah, there's something called the labor force participation rate or something like that. Mm. And I believe, I haven't had a chance to check it in some time, but
Unfallen.
During COVID, it plummeted, of course.
Yeah.
And it hasn't come back up to pre-COVID rates. So the answer is that some people who worked are not working now. They've managed to find some way. Now, somebody, whatever the reasons might be, but that's the truth, and that's the way it is. So if you have this 10% of population that is not working, and you're like, this is societally acceptable, we can have this, it's not too long before the bottom 20%, right? That 10% that's above them is like, hey, this doesn't look so bad.
Yeah, like someone like Sarah, who seems like to be totally normal and has her wits about her, but says, "Oh, I can't work. You don't understand. I'm bipolar." Anyways, I go around every day, like doing stuff. I even went out and she went out and got people to sign up for voting. She was perfectly capable of that. She works for an MLM, and yet, oh no, I can't have a job, any job. There's not a job on the whole planet that will fit my personality because a doctor told me 25 years ago that I have bipolar.
Yep, and I think she's a very good example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, she's like that 20%.
Well, I think she's actually like that 40%, right?
Yeah,
so
maybe.
Once you get the 20%, then you have the 30%, and then you have the 40%. Mm-hmm. And pretty soon, you have the most productive 25% of people working to support 75% of people who don't want to.
Yeah.
And that societally doesn't work. And you have you'll get on your hands some kind of revolution at that point. Now, what's it look like? I don't know. I don't mean lining people up with a cigarette and shooting them, but something is going to change fundamentally at that point. Now, I don't know what that looks like, but that's...
Yeah, it's the problem.
People are going to drop out.
The government incentivizes people to stop working altogether in many cases, as opposed to simply taking what would otherwise be possible, which is them taking odd jobs here and there, not working all the time, not working a full-time job. But that doesn't mean they can't work. They can work. They just are not going to work because they get more money from the government than than if they actually did odd jobs. But there's nothing wrong with odd jobs. It just means that sometimes you will work and some days you won't work, and it's just. Maybe you'll make less money, maybe you won't. It's just a mindset.
It's also when there's it takes this productive class, right? Like at one point, not too many years ago, I was part of the productive class. Now I don't even pay tax. I am not productive. I do not do anything to produce. I'm in the investor class, but I don't produce anything, and it's because if I were to have an income, I would pay so much in tax on that income that it wouldn't be worth doing. You're
incentivized not to work. It's not even a situation where you're poor. It's a situation where you have money and you have assets and you have resources, but you're disincentivized from working.
It's not like you're taxed. It's not like you're out there taking things that you didn't pay for.
No.
And in fact, I feel like people who have money and don't have jobs are in a way productive because it's like every time you shop at somewhere like...
Yeah, you give people money, sure.
Yeah.
You're producing in that way. I got what you're saying.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's the case. But let's say that I wanted medical coverage. So I decided to go to Starbucks and work 20 hours a week. I believe you can do this. You can work 20 hours a week at Starbucks. Now, presuming that place will let you get away with saying, no, I'm not coming in. I'm sticking to my 20 hours. Because I think very quickly Starbucks would be like, you, Mark, need to come in more often. And then they try to get more hours out of me.
It sucks that there's not more jobs that you can just be more flexible about, because sometimes you just want 20 hours.
I can speak to this a little bit of experience. If you're clear about what you have in terms of days of the week, in terms of being able to work, you'll probably only ever get scheduled for those days in a job like that. But if on the other hand you go in and it's obvious that you can work other days, they'll start putting you on other days. And so you got to be real careful about
39 hours a week
about it when you start off.
And then depending on the jurisdiction that I decide to get this job at Starbucks, right? Could be some place with a very high state income tax and these kind of things. I could work for half of the wage that I'm getting paid, because 40% of it has to go to the federal government. Then 10% of it goes to the state, and then all the other taxes and employment tax and all that stuff. And then I'm dealing with some snotty person who wanted oat milk, not almond milk, in their latte, and
should have gave it to them.
Whatever it was. And then I'm like, I don't have to live like this, and I walk off after 3 weeks.
Right.
So.
Well, we do have another caller on the line, so I'm going to change subjects probably here unless they want to talk about this subject. Dave Ridley in Colorado, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yeah, are you you guys familiar with the name Nick Bostrom?
No.
No, had to think about it now.
So Bostrom is kind of the reigning expert on the sort of the philosophical side of AI.
No, I haven't heard of him.
So he wrote a book called Superintelligence in 2014 when he basically predicted most of the things that are happening right now.
I saw somebody seriously say we need to not be racist against the AI when somebody called it a machine.
Wait, what? How is that racist?
They genuinely said that with straight face, on Twitter. So I don't know what their
face
looks like.
How do you even be racist against a machine?
They said, let's not be racist against the AI.
Well, Bostrom predicted that we would, in 2014, that we'd be having these kinds of debates now, basically. So anyway, he has this idea that the things we do over the next couple of years may be the most important things humans ever do. Even if you do some minor thing, now, it'll matter a great deal more than anything you do in 10 years or 20 years, because at that point, it may be in the hands of the machines. So I've been struggling with, this question, what do I do? What can Free Staters do? How do we pull AI in a more humane, libertarian direction. And I have run into a new option, and that is a website called Venice.ai. You guys know Eric Voorhees, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
the listener of the show.
Instead of using ChatGPT, instead of using the sort of Big Brother AIs, large language models, if you go to Venice.ai, you get one that is at least managed by him. Now he's using Llama, I think, as the default, which is a pretty decent one. But you can pick different large language models to use. And Venice.ai is designed to make sure that there's no censorship. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice because ChatGPT does get annoying with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm exaggerating. It's designed to allow you to pick the censorship level that you're comfortable with, essentially. And the other good thing about it, my favorite thing about it, actually, is that you can use it without having to log in.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense to you.
So I tried.
But if you do log in, then it becomes specialized to you, right? It can learn your voice as an author and that kind of thing?
You can make it more specialized, but I think it's probably less private. That's another advantage that supposedly they have, is it's supposed to be private. So if you don't log in, I don't think it has any idea.
Sure.
Especially if you're using a VPN or whatnot, what questions you ask and what answers you get. I tried comparing it against Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, and I can't remember for the life of me the question that I asked. It was a little bit obscure, not super controversial, but Copilot out and out refused to answer the question, whereas when I went to Venice.ai, I got a good, useful answer. So it seems to be better. It lags in some ways against some of the more advanced models, but at least Eric is on the scene. And I think Eric, by the way, is a Free Stater.
Yeah, I believe he is too.
I thought Eric Voorhees lives in like a different state. I don't know, Massachusetts,
Yeah,
Connecticut.
I believe he moved to New Hampshire and has since left and, considers himself a Free Stater, though.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, he's an important figure in the Bitcoin world. He runs Shapeshift.io, which is the thing that lets you swap cryptocurrencies, I think, without logging in also.
Is he the one that, was...
yeah, it's decentralized, isn't it now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he the one that was given the keys from Satoshi? Is that a different guy?
No, that was Gavin Andreessen.
Andreessen, there we go. Yeah. Okay, I might be mixing those two people up.
But he's that early on and that important of a voice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say I love ChatGPT now. It's been very helpful to me. I think that it's a better doctor than the doctors in the Keene the Keene Hospital.
Oh, that's interesting. I've not tried to ask it medical questions, but I might be hesitant to ask it medical questions.
It took me forever to think of that. And the thing is, it will explain things to you, and then you can, look into it yourself. And the thing is, everything a doctor tells you is their opinion. So, everything a doctor tells you, you can have, this other information and be like, yeah, well, I don't really agree with you because of this. So I don't really think that... we can get back into this conversation if you want, Dave Ridley, if you want to hang on. But yeah, I don't really think it's that much of a risk. I mean, when a doctor tells you something, they could be flat out wrong. They could kill you. 603-283-6160. Would you ask AI questions about your medical problems? You can even send it your blood test where it can ask it to tell you things about it. More Free Talk Live coming up. Don't go anywhere. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing. To be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. At least 144 people have been killed and more than 730 injured after a major earthquake hit Myanmar and neighbouring Thailand. Myanmar's military government has warned the death toll is expected to rise. Dozens of people are trapped, including construction workers in Bangkok, where a high-rise that was under construction collapsed. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports.
On Friday afternoon, a 7.7 magnitude quake hit the northwest city of Sagaing in Myanmar at a shallow depth, according to the United States Geological Survey. A 6.4 magnitude aftershock hit the same area minutes later. There are reports buildings have fallen onto their sides, roads cracked open, and the well-known Ava Bridge has collapsed near the epicenter. Across the border in Thailand, where earthquakes are rare, the powerful tremors sent residents across many cities flooding into the streets in panic. In Bangkok, a 30-story building under construction has collapsed, and that's trapped dozens of workers. The quake prompted Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra to declare a state of emergency in Bangkok, where some metro and light rail services have been suspended, but the airport is operating as normal.
A US judge has ordered the Trump administration to preserve messages that were part of a group chat on the app Signal. Officials, including the US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, accidentally included a journalist in their discussions about airstrikes in Yemen. US District Judge James Boasberg has ordered the preservation of the messages that detailed attack plans on the Yemen-based Houthis group. It follows a lawsuit filed by a left-leaning group, American Oversight, demanding clarification on whether the officials violated federal record-keeping laws. Ukraine's president says the United States is constantly changing the details of a proposed minerals deal. The new proposal reportedly offers no long-term security guarantees for Ukraine, but ties it to a joint investment fund from the income of all its natural resources. FSN's William Denslow reports from Kiev.
US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has suggested this minerals deal could be signed as early as next week. But while noting that he's not necessarily against the proposal, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Thursday that Washington kept changing the terms of what he calls a major new deal. The current plan reportedly contains no security guarantees for Kyiv, something the country has repeatedly called for. But the US maintains that an economic partnership and increased footprint in the country would act as a deterrence against Russia.
Britain's King Charles has cancelled public engagements this Friday after experiencing side effects from his cancer treatment. He spent a short period in hospital on Thursday for observation. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Mr. Penguin,
and Mark Edge.
And we were talking to Dave Ridley in Colorado in the last segment, and I feel like you had more you wanted to say about the philosophical side of AI and its implications for humanity going forward. So what else do you have on your mind, Dave?
It's more of an invitation for listeners to, if they want to weigh in on this issue with their ideas of how we can pull AI in a more freedom-friendly direction. I wrote an article at freekeen.com fairly recently, so if you just go there and scroll backwards, you can make your own comment and your own suggestions without logging in as to how you think libertarians should react to the AI situation, what we can do to make it better.
So what was the proposal as far as Venice.ai?
Well, my proposal is just use it. That probably helps them almost as much as many of the other things that you could do.
Well, yeah, so I think
I've been using AI quite a bit. I hadn't heard about it yet. I've been using Grok, and then WhatsApp has its own version. I can't remember. Maybe it's called Meta. And then, of course, there's ChatGPT, and then Google essentially has AI integrated in its search engine to some extent.
Yeah.
Nothing to add.
Thank you, Dave, for the call.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, thank you for the call, Dave Ridley from Colorado. Always appreciate anybody who wants to call in. And that number is 603-283-6160 for anybody that wants to bring up whatever's on their mind. And I think one thing that he was saying about the Venice.ai is, well, if you want to talk to an AI that won't, like, for example, just toe the mainstream media's lines on certain things. Like maybe I shouldn't talk about what the case was because it'll bring up too many other topics, and maybe, and the thing was I wasn't like, okay, here's what I'm trying to say. I asked it about like an old case, American historical like trial that happened, and it just kept bringing me back to, but of course, even though no one knows the truth, but of course this person was innocent and wrongly convicted. And I was like, well, how can you say that when there's like evidence on both sides and people back then were so sure of one side? Like, I want to know why you actually say that. And it's all because, okay, I'll just say it's all because the ADL put a bunch of money into saying that, no, this person was wrongly convicted and didn't do it, when we have no way of knowing that in 1913 he didn't kill this girl.
Yeah, it's...
It just kept repeating that. I was like, can you at least try to be unbiased?
And you're right, this does bring up lots of other topics. Because I immediately want to comment on how presentism, as they call it, it kind of informs everything that we talk about. People now, young people, college professors, they have the hubris to say that free speech is dangerous and hurtful. When... free speech is many generations have managed to make it in this country with free speech, whatever that might be. And the idea that we know the truth now, because free speech allows somebody to have a different opinion, right? So the majority opinion, whatever that might be, the acceptable opinion, the Overton window opinion is correct, and any opinion that is outside of that window is incorrect. Well, the Overton window was in a completely different place 100 years ago and will be likely in a different place in 100 years. And, some of the things that we believe as just fact today will likely not be believed as fact in the future.
Yeah, I was saying recently, man, I don't know what I was basing it off of, but I was saying it's not the same case, but I was saying we don't know that this is true about this historical figure any more than in 100 years there could be books written about Ian Freeman, the man who brought the United States of America back together, and it could be all about how Ian fought to make Americans love the government again. They could just write that, and people 100 years ago from now could believe it. They could just delete history, put old articles out there, people would believe it. I don't remember what the point I was trying to make about it was. It's just the fact that it's not that hard for the mainstream media to control things in real time and history.
I mean, I think they already do control things. Like, they control the narrative. And we probably have a little bit more now in terms of like not the mainstream not controlling the entire narrative, but it's not that different than it was, a couple decades ago, really. Well,
it's the tool of power, right? So the mainstream media, as it was defined 4 years ago, isn't the same set of organizations as it is today. But essentially, those same organizations want you to believe what they say and not believe what the other guys say. It's just kind of, it's the same as political parties.
I mean, pretty much every story that comes out.
Worse when they're in lockstep, though.
I mean, pretty much every story that gets released is aligned in some way or another. It's a template of some other story, and it doesn't necessarily match the facts of the story, of the actual story. It's just stuff gets filled in, and it's like, well, you didn't get anything from the opposing side, or you got one little tiny quote, but it doesn't tell you the opposing side's point of view. It's only telling you one point of view, and this is just how it is. It's media. The media is really, really terrible about.
Journalism kind of has to do that. Like when you think about journalism, it is a person who is uninformed on a topic writing on that topic. So if I, as a guy who, existed, you could call me a journalist if that's what you wanted to do. As a political commentator for many, many years, I could, look at a topic, and I remember unschooling. When we talked about unschooling the first time on the air here, I was pretty much against this idea. This sounds crazy.
And wasn't New Hampshire like the leader?
Yes. Yeah. We read the story on Dana Martin years before she became sort of important, and I, met her and all that stuff. And I was like, wow, this sounds nuts.
Is she like at Anarchapulco usually?
I think she might be. I've certainly seen her there in the past.
I think that I've seen her from The Anarchist, the HBO's thing that they did on Anarchapulco.
Yeah. Now, when you say you thought it sounded nuts, was that based on just what they're calling it, or was it based on what they were teaching or doing, or the idea
we just let the
behind
kids run rampant and decide
right,
what they
because,
want to do.
Like, I could understand somebody
what time they want to go to bed.
I think I can understand why it sounds nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't really have an idea of what it is.
Sure.
Yeah, just being the devil's advocate.
They were radical as far as unschooling. I think that's the best way to describe them. That doesn't mean bad. It just means that they took it to an extreme.
Right.
And they let the kids decide what they were going to study. They basically homeschooled, but they, if the kids are interested in a topic, then they can do that topic. And that's an area that can get kind of loaded. No one says about the young boy that decided, I think I'll play video games for the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. And what are the results of that? I don't know the answer.
Well, their point is usually they say that usually if you have a bunch of kids together learning and one kid is like, I don't want to learn, I just want to do video games, then the other kids who want to learn will peer pressure him.
That's a democratic school, right? So they had 4 kids, if I recall correctly. And what about unschooling for one kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that look like?
And the thing I'm talking about is usually Montessori too, where you literally bring your kids to a school and it's not just homeschooling.
I wouldn't call that unschooling.
Yeah, no.
So in this case, they were parents who decided that they were not going to send their kids to school, and that essentially everything that the kids wanted to do, that's the way they did it. So they picked their own bedtimes, they picked their own, from what I could tell, the kids did pretty good as far as meal prep. Mm-hmm. And that's because these folks never had Kraft macaroni and cheese in the house, right? These kids never had
ingredients,
an option.
There's this thing, you're either a food, maybe the word isn't food, like a snack house or an ingredient house.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, when you're a kid, did you just go into the pantry and grab some Rice Krispies, or did you have to go grab peas and corn and put it in the microwave?
Snack house for me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I feel like it was my parents tried both ways, but whatever. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think I met some unschooling parents when I worked at a hotel, because there was these 2 kids. I had no idea what gender they were, and they chose their outfits, and they always looked kind of homeless, but they were kids, so it didn't matter. They were really mature and sweet, and they never went to school every day. They're just with their mom, and she was always doing cool activities with them, and they were literally seemed better off than the average family. So
see,
no hate.
What's interesting about this is there are certain things that you probably need to learn, right? In order just to get by in society, right? I think some of the basics, reading, writing, and basic arithmetic, but you only need it up to a 5th grade level, and most of your elementary years is just
Yeah, I asked
you're not actually learning, right? They're not really teaching you anything of value.
Yeah, it's only memorization.
Right. It's a little bit out of every day. Maybe you get something out of it, but it's probably an hour or 2 at best. So
we did unschooling after we read this article. I began to look into this, and what I'm saying is that my opinion changed on unschooling. It did. We did essentially unschooling with Jack, my son, from the time he was born till the time that he was in 5th grade or something like that. And over time, we modified it to what I called family-directed learning. So yes, we're going to do the things that work for Jack. And yes, we're going to do the things that work for mommy and the things that work for daddy too, right? And we're going to do all of those things.
Jack wants to go to the movie theater every day.
Right. Well, Jack needs to learn how to pay for that would be the unschooling answer. And that would be a good thing. But
yeah,
what if,
that's pretty cool.
But Jack wants to turn on the TV and watch things. And I'll tell you what, if you've got a television in the house, you know as well as, or a tablet or whatever it is, you know how mesmerizing that is for a young person. Jack didn't get to watch any except for... well, first, every once in a while, Laura would put on the Baby Einstein stuff just to be able to do a little bit of work for Free Talk Live, the office stuff. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it was Your Baby Can Read, Baby Reading Kit. Baby Reading Kit was one of our sponsors for some time. And they sent this free program to us, and they're like, let's try it out on the kid. And literally, there is a video of Jack... Edge, I don't know what we called him exactly in the video, but there's a YouTube video out there that you can find today of my son reading colors on a flashcard at like 14 months or something.
Oh, that's awesome.
Barely talk, and the thing that Laura says is that was most amazing. It wasn't just looking at the cards and saying, that's the color or whatever, looking at the shapes, and because people were baffled by this. How can that young child read those words with 80% accuracy or whatever? But there was a sign that had the word beef and a picture of a cow above it. Mm-hmm. Jack was at the grocery store, the one you go to, points up and he says, beef.
Whoa.
Right? So he could read the word beef with a picture of a cow above it.
Yeah, and he didn't say cow like a baby might say, more likely.
Yeah, and I don't know whether we read that sign to him previously and he just memorized. I mean, how else would he know that those letters say beef? I don't know, because this was definitely the CSAY method. It wasn't phonics. Mm-hmm. It was like, this is what this word looks like. This is what this word sounds like. And they would put it together, and that's that.
It's just insane what babies are capable of because their neuroplasticity is so good. I think that when it comes to elementary school... Chris, you were talking about this, is that in that time frame, a little bit of math's good, but really fundamentally it comes down to a love of reading. If you can instill a love of reading to somebody who's, 10, 11 and under, you got to sit with them, you got to read, you got to, encourage them to read on their own, all this stuff. If you can do that, then fundamentally that's all you really needed out of school. And Jack's done phenomenally in school. He's getting, I don't know if he's gotten a B in high school.
Wow.
Maybe he's gotten one.
High school?
Jack's, he's hoping to graduate a year early. So he's in his second year of high school right now and nearly done with that. I'll show you the report card here during the break.
Nice. I was
as proud as I could be.
For like kindergarten, third grade, and my mom just had me read a lot, and she didn't have to make me. It's like she would be like, okay, Bonnie, you're gonna read this book, and it was like Lord of the Flies or something. So I read that in third grade when we were told to read it, and read it with the class in 10th grade.
Right.
And it's just like reading the Bible and stuff like that. I was a person who understood like references in culture like way before all my peers, like especially the Bible. It's like, oh, that's happening in that music video because it's like biting the apple, and like being shocked that somebody who grew up Christian too didn't know that reference. That's pretty blatant, but still they're more than just that one. But I don't know,
my Christian school used Bible stories as sort of the classical education too. They didn't. They tried to steer away from the Greek and towards the Bible on that. And we had to learn long passages. I remember having to recite Luke 2, at Christmas time. And God, they just. I mean, boy, that was stressful. But And then Psalm 23, you got to be able to recite that one too.
I've got no idea what you guys are talking about.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Right? It just keeps
I would
going.
say that one in my head at trial, because that one is just comforting for some reason.
Yeah.
And it's not even like I'm like necessarily saying it for the same reason like a Catholic would. It just, I don't know, it's just like comforting. And it didn't help. Because I wasn't saying it like a magic spell. I was saying it to calm myself.
So it didn't work to calm yourself?
No, it did.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that Ian's result, which is going to prison, for those that don't know, isn't the best result. I don't know. I'd wanted a different result. Believe that. To the point that I needed counseling when my ex-business partner goes to prison. I got to go to a psychiatrist over this. It was just that bad. But and I'm still hanging on that he might get released before 2 months is out since his appeal. So I'm thinking in like the next 2 weeks before I'm fully wrong.
I mean, honestly, I think it probably is a better result for him to actually be in a cage right now. I mean, it would have been better if they had not sent him to the cage while he's waiting on appeal. But the point is that it's good if he loses at the district level and he wins on appeal, because it then creates a circuit precedent potentially for other people.
Why his dumb lawyers didn't
we can
everything.
Yeah, I know we can go there, but I'm just saying that I think Mark is right. Like, people think him losing at the district level is a bad thing, but I don't necessarily know that it is. I think it may be a good thing if the objective is to achieve something out of the whole fight in the first place. Because ultimately he was going to get arrested for something, whether it was this or something else, because they were going after him for political reasons. But with this, at least there's an opportunity to make some progress potentially somewhere. And
I don't think so. I think that in this case they can
potentially is the key word.
I understand.
Here.
So let me tell you what
him, then definitely not. Sorry. Go ahead.
Let me tell you what the punt looks like. Now, I'm not saying that I don't know what the appeals court's going to do, but I am saying that none of the judges on the appeals court were ever prosecutors, which I consider to be a pretty good sign. Also,
it's actually really good.
Now Ian has had, of the 8 charges that he was found guilty of, one of them, the chief judge of the New Hampshire district, who was a former prosecutor, went and clawed that back. He said, nope, he didn't say the jury was wrong, but he said that there wasn't sufficient evidence for this finding. And which means they're wrong, obviously. But, jury's wrong on that topic. So 7 of the 8 he's sitting in jail for. Then he sentenced him on those and that kind of thing. And then now Ian recently in January went back on appeal. And of course, he's not there. He didn't go anywhere. When I say went back, it's kind of a funny statement. But he goes back on appeal. And
yeah, I was kind of hoping he would get to be there.
Yeah, he wasn't even there. That's the funny thing. But his lawyers were.
Yeah.
And then then in it, one of the judges says that the IRS agent, now this is on a tax evasion charge, one of the fundamental requirements for a tax evasion charge is that there is a tax burden. There must be a tax burden, and you must know how much it is. That the IRS agent said to Ian's attorney,
in the trial.
Right?
She affirmed what the attorney said, which is that not only do we not know what Ian owes, but if there's a tax burden at all. And she said
it is totally possible that he owed $0.
Right.
That's right. In which case, well, what? Now what? The IRS hasn't wanted to, and there's still not a tax burden. The IRS hasn't come back after this prosecution and said, here's the amount that Ian owes. And that is required for these 4 charges to remain. So now we're at a remaining 3 charges. If those judges remand back those 4, that's 5 charges that Ian was brought to trial on that have not been found guilty, that he's not guilty of or whatever.
Right.
That means remanded back for a resentence. Now, once he's remanded back for a resentence, the state goes, we got you for X millions of dollars that we took in Bitcoin from you, and you signed over a piece of paper that says that you didn't want us to go after your friends and that kind of thing, so we'll just give you time served and let you go. Now, that doesn't solve anything.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
So that's what I'm thinking the punt might look like.
And then if Trump pardons him, it doesn't solve anything either.
And you guys are both right. Those are definitely both possibilities. And I think the
sometimes senseless
but I think
happen.
This all goes back to the possibility, right? There's the possibility that it could impact other people depending on how things go. Let's say, for example, that neither of those situations happen and they are forced to roll and they roll positively, right? It could be that we nullify, that law and it's no longer useful to be used against other people or something along those lines. Now, one of the challenges in this particular case is that Ian's charges, or the law that he was charged with, has been modified, has been changed since after his arrest. So it may, even if he were to win, it may only affect a couple of people, maybe nobody even. But it really kind of depends on what the ruling is. And
I think the thing that needs to be taken away from Ian's situation is that I don't believe that it means there's such thing as determinism and God just wanted us to all go through this. I think we all have free will, and that means other people's bad decisions and free will can impact you. There are bad people out there who wanted Ian in prison, and they focused, brought resources together, and got it done. And they put Ian in prison, and that's why it happened.
And, I think there's something else to point out here is I honestly don't think the 8 years was like, no matter what they did, I think they were going to charge him with something. And I think the way it would have gone if Ian hadn't done the things that he done is he could be spending the rest of his life in a cage. And they would have made up evidence, and there would be no defense. And I think he had a strong defense because he effectively gave them something on a silver platter to charge him with.
I think he got an offer of 10 years at one point.
He got a plea deal offer. I think maybe you're right, 10 years or something.
And his taking it to trial was clearly the better choice against that 10 years. Now, I don't know, like the thing that was so upsetting for me is I was there 80% of the time. Now, I'm certainly not sitting in a room. I'm sitting in a room with two people who are there 100% of the time. But that 80% of the time, my conclusion was he's won. I sat there and I listened.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes.
To the evidence.
Me too.
Right.
In that court case the entire time, and I'm like, yep.
Okay, wait. Difference between me and you, because I said I agree. Difference between me and you is up until the closing arguments, and I was like, Sisti's closing argument was so weak. This is actually making my stomach turn. I was like, Ian's going to prison.
Yeah, but you know what? I think if you look at the people who were there, I don't think there was a single person there. Other than like the people the prosecution brought in or whatever, right, to fill seats, to make it look like there's I
think they were there because they're like, oh, this is a trial's actually happening. Let's see how it goes.
Well, the point that I'm making is everybody seems to think that he's innocent, right? Like, and it doesn't matter whether we're talking about people who simply read the transcript that weren't there, or people who went and sat in for some portion of the trial, or people who were there for the whole trial.
Yeah, I've been happy.
But the jury didn't.
Yeah,
the jury came to a unanimous conclusion.
I get that, but I don't necessarily think that the jury, I don't know if the jury just didn't like him. I mean, obviously they did stuff. That
seems obvious.
The prosecution
didn't like that
did
his
stuff.
Wife was young,
the prosecution did stuff to bias the jury, right? Like they focused on stop paying taxes to sign and like other political stuff. Aria they focused on with her
satanic church,
right? Satanic church. Like there's things that could have obviously biased the jury.
And
so
Sisti saying to the jury, like, well, no one wants to pay taxes. It's obviously stupid in light of everything that Mark explained when you should have been focusing on that he didn't know it. More Free Talk Live coming up.
When you're coping with bad news and the news media come calling, and they will, don't clam up. As notorious political figures find out the hard way, the cover-up can be worse than the crime. So get out in front of unfavorable news about your company, your group, or organization, or yourself. The sooner you confront a negative story, the sooner it will be over. Responding as quickly to negative stories as you do to positive ones enhances your credibility. Hiding embarrassing information or lying will do more damage than damage control. Never stonewall. Tell your side of the story, use specifics, and detail what corrective action has already been taken. Respond in kind. If the issue is emotional, don't sound like a cold, unemotional Mr. Spock. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, The Atlantic magazine in the United States published attack plans shared by Donald Trump's officials in a group chat that mistakenly included the magazine's editor. The White House tried to downplay the security blunder about plans to strike Houthi rebels in Yemen. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said someone made a big mistake. Ever since Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
Like the rest of the Trump administration, Marco Rubio said the details in the chat did not amount to classified material. But Democrats and some Republicans have argued the discussion of the timing and weapons used, along with the addition of a journalist to the group, amounted to a serious failure of national security practices. Secretary Rubio did acknowledge that the information was not intended to be divulged to the public, and that was a mistake that shouldn't have happened, adding he thinks there will be reforms and changes. Kate Fisher, Washington.
This week, Donald Trump announced a 25% tariff on all automobiles imported into the United States. The US president said the move was intended to boost domestic manufacturing, but it's expected to raise car prices for US buyers. There was an angry global reaction. FSN's Iris Spitzer has more.
The U.S. president announced the new tariffs during a televised address in the Oval Office, saying that they will go into effect on April 2nd.
And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
The tariffs will have an immediate impact on the U.S. car market, where nearly half of all vehicles are currently assembled outside of the country. Mexico is the top foreign supplier of cars to the U.S., and the U.S. automakers who have plants there won't be exempt from the new tariffs.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and U.S. Second Lady Usha Vance were forced to downgrade a trip to Greenland this week to one of the United States military bases. It follows weeks of comments by the U.S. president that America should acquire Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark. Ever since Caroline Malone reported on the run-up to the controversial visit.
No more trips to see a dog sledding race or historical sites for Usha Vance. Instead, joined by J.D. Vance, the pair will only head to the Pitofik Air Base, the US northernmost installation which contributes to missile defense and space surveillance. Usha Vance had been due to go it alone on a cultural exchange, but not in an official capacity, ruffling feathers, especially given US President Donald Trump has said he'll do whatever is necessary to acquire Greenland. Only 6% of Greenlanders polled would want to join the US. 84% also want full sovereignty from Denmark.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. A powerful earthquake hit the Asian nations of Myanmar and Thailand on Friday, killing scores of people. In the Thai capital Bangkok, an under-construction skyscraper collapsed. Ever since Laura Westbrook sent this report shortly after the news of the quake was confirmed.
On Friday afternoon, a 7.7 magnitude quake hit the northwest city of Sagaing in Myanmar at a shallow depth, according to the United States Geological Survey. A 6.4 magnitude aftershock hit the same area minutes later. There are reports buildings have fallen onto their sides, roads cracked open, and the well-known Ava Bridge has collapsed near the epicenter. Across the border in Thailand, where earthquakes are rare, the powerful tremors sent residents across many cities flooding into the streets in panic. In Bangkok, a 30-story building under construction has collapsed, and that's trapped dozens of workers. Laura Westbrook, Hong Kong.
This week, France held the latest Ukraine support summit in Paris, attended by 30 countries, plus the EU and NATO. Host President Emmanuel Macron announced another $2 billion in military assistance from France for Ukraine, including missiles, drones and armoured vehicles. Ever since Ross Cullen reports from Paris.
Emmanuel Macron is hosting European leaders and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Paris on Thursday in a summit that's being co-chaired by the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. One of the key goals will be discussions around a Franco-British plan for a so-called reassurance force of thousands of troops to be potentially deployed in Ukraine after a peace agreement. The plan has been dismissed by the US, but London and Paris are serious about the idea, with Macron saying on the eve of the conference that any Western forces invited into Ukraine by Kiev would respond to any attack on them from Russia. Ross Cullen, Paris.
And that's the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
To help reduce you to a state of constant panic about a hypothetical doomsday scenario you have no ability to control, we now present The Onion Explains Nuclear Proliferation. The world's nuclear facilities are safeguarded by a bunch of really huge guys. We're talking absolutely jacked. With one of these muscle freaks stationed outside every missile silo and uranium processing plant worldwide, there's no way to get anywhere close to a nuclear complex without getting your ass beat. This nuclear facility in Siberia is rumored to be among the most secure in the world because they have like 6 of these. And you can just forget about hijacking a nuclear submarine too, because all of them have these totally roided up dudes that'll just swim up to you and choke you out.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number you can call to bring in any topic you want, talk about whatever is on your mind. That's 603-283-6160. And I'd like to thank Cameron for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Cameron went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS, AMPS, stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks to Cameron and everyone who supports us. And again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. And we appreciate all of our amplifiers here on Free Talk Live. Thanks to everybody who supports us. And on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Mr. Penguin,
and Mark Edge.
And we have a caller on the line already. We have Riley here in New Hampshire. Oh, your name still says Riley in Utah here, but nope, it's Riley.
Oh, you'll have to fix that.
Yeah, it's Riley in New Hampshire. What's on your mind?
So I wanted to bring up a couple things. On April 20th, which will be Easter Sunday this year, I'll be holding a 420 rally at the state capitol, so we'll be promoting cannabis freedom. I just want to invite the listeners of Free Talk Live out, and hopefully people will attend because I think it's important to promote cannabis freedom. And decriminalization of nature. I don't think people should be prosecuted for possessing or using a plant.
Yeah, and New Hampshire's in a kind of an odd position compared to other states. New Hampshire hasn't legalized marijuana for recreational use, and Maine, Massachusetts, and Vermont, and to my knowledge, maybe even Canada, so therefore, New Hampshire's completely surrounded by states that have.
It is, and what's interesting about it too, though, is we don't pay taxes on our weed here. Whereas as a result of that, because I think
it's better than Massachusetts.
They only decriminalized it. They didn't legalize it and tax it
or monopolize it.
Yeah, right. Same as alcohol,
right? Right. And that's one of the things they were trying to do here that failed. Is they were trying to tax and regulate, but that failed. And
nobody's going to prison for having marijuana in New Hampshire.
Right. No,
and they further decriminalized it recently. Oh, well, I guess the House passed it and the Senate still has to do it.
Yeah, I don't think it's been completely. So it's still a violation technically, but for practical purposes, it's completely decriminalized. In that, if you looked at the number of arrests between prior to the change and after. We went in Keene. This is Keene specifically. I think we went from 22 tickets a year to 2 tickets a year.
Nice.
So it's it's basically
90%.
Right. So they can still ticket you, but they don't.
I
basically.
love this one story. This is like the best way to illustrate it to people who don't understand. There is a person I know that got arrested, and then when he's getting out on PR or whatever, oh, here's your wedding ring, here's your watch, here's your joint from your pocket back. That happened, and it was a
that's why I love New
Goffstown.
Hampshire.
Yeah.
I
love
believe
that.
it too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Riley, was that all you had on your mind, or you wanted to talk about the story from The Guardian?
So I want to talk about the story from The Guardian that I posted in our Free Talk live chat, and that is that, Trump has been doing the government cutting of programs, and there are a lot of blind people that I see post stuff online about how they're being affected by this whole cutting of government programs. They're worried that, with Trump demolishing the government programs they rely on, like the Americans with Disabilities Act and things like that, to some extent, that, blind people are going to be thought of less of in the world because disability rights are not being promoted. And it does concern me a little bit as a blind person because I rely on something to make my life easier, and some things are just more affordable if government can pay for them. And unfortunately, that is the problem because, we rely so heavily on an institution that lies and robs and steals from my neighbors to pay for things that would make my life easier. I would rather see that change. I don't know what the solution is here. I'm glad I'm in New Hampshire where people are pointing toward liberty, and at least I can talk about this idea to people around me, and maybe we could come up with solutions that are viable.
Well, I've got to say, as somebody who pays tax or has certainly paid tax, like of the people that I want gone after, blind people are the lowest on the list. Right? Like there's, just the lowest. I don't know where you could start to, make your biggest cuts. And
why start there?
Yeah, it does seem crazy.
Seems like a bad idea, like on purpose, to make it seem like a really bad idea to cut any government. Look what's happening to blind people.
I'm going to say something crazy here.
Go ahead.
It didn't really start with cutting the budget to support blind people. He's cutting stuff across the board, or at least trying.
I guess I'm being like hyperbolic, but I'm just saying, like, don't even touch that for a couple years if you have to touch it at all.
But I understand what everybody is saying in terms of like, we don't like, that's the last thing we want to cut, right? It's like right next to the roads,
right in the front and center of the media. They're not going to be talking about like these useless bureaucrats losing, hours or whatever. They're going to be like, oh, look what Trump did. He took away, help from blind people.
And what we've noticed, you can look at the numbers of people taking disability. If you look at the economy, compare it to people taking disability, you will see when the economy is down, there's a rise in people taking disability, which sort of says, to some extent, that some people
decide to be disabled sometimes?
Not disabled at certain times in the economic cycle. And that means to me that they're not disabled at all if they're able to work at some point. Now, blind people doesn't reach that list as far as I'm concerned.
There are definitely people that abuse the disability.
Right. But if you look at disability as far as how much of the economy disability payments are, they are minute compared to military spending and any variety of things that are out there too.
Well, and the funny thing about this is like we're concerned about this isn't just blind people, by the way. This is disability. But anyway, but the disability is like insignificant in the scheme of things. Like the money that if the government cut taxes, we wouldn't even notice the little sliver that's going to disability, right? Like it's not going to be something that we can't cover through other means, through voluntary means, right? Like, and I think that's one of the things that people, they always they miss, and they think, well, I'm not, or like, for example, like, especially people who are like atheists, right? Like, they have this idea that like, well, the only way to do it is through government, and that's not really true. Even in the circumstance where, yes, it was churches and things of that nature, that it has traditionally been where people who
they're good at it.
Yeah, who were I'm trying to think what the right word is.
Charitable?
No, disabled would be, but needy, I guess, is probably, well, I don't know if that's the best choice of word, but I'm just saying the choice of word that traditionally would have been people who are needy, the churches would have taken care of, right? Like that's where. Well, they don't do that anymore. Like it's the system's been, well, to some degree, but the system's changed so much. Mm-hmm. How much of your income do you donate to the church, for example, right? And I'm not asking anybody to tell you that. What I'm saying is,
mine's
traditionally
sizable.
I understand, but you're a libertarian anyway. Yeah. So traditionally, though, people would donate 10% of their income to the church, right? And you don't have that today.
No, that still happens. You didn't grow up in the Bible Belt.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that
I bet Riley would say it happens where he's from.
I don't doubt that it happens. What I'm saying is it doesn't happen to the same degree that it did in the past.
Yes, maybe, sure. But
I think to some extent this is reporting, and to some extent this is the sort of Doge thing, right? Like everybody's mad at Elon Musk, so we report on everything bad that's happening. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what's going on because I don't believe the mainstream media.
Right.
Hell, you shouldn't believe me. You should research things for yourself. And here's a little bit of research I did very quickly while we were talking about this. I remembered some years ago, Rand Paul had proposed this penny program of his. It was called like the 3 penny plan or something. And then maybe it was as many as 10 years ago. And if this plan was adopted, this would balance the budget in, let's see, Dr. Rand Paul introduced a 6 penny plan to balance the federal budget in 5 years. Here's a plan that balances the federal budget for 5 years. And basically, you're asking each federal agency, each one. We're not saying that this federal agency is completely worthless, USAID. We're not saying you're bad, you were wrong. We're saying cut your budget by 6%. Everybody listening to me right now knows that they could cut their spending by 6%.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd be okay.
Yeah.
You cut spending by 6% every year. So 6%, then 6%, then 6%. But 6%.
Evil, 666.
Right? Well, it's 5 of them.
Okay.
6666666.
More evil.
And then you hold steady for, if I remember the story, I'm not reading this right now, but if I remember the old plan, you hold steady for another 5 years, that would balance the budget. And maybe this one's just for 5. It does say 5 years.
3 penny plan.
The 3 penny plan was 3% every year for 5 years, and then hold steady for 5. And maybe this is just cut 6 for every year. But whatever it is, the budget would be balanced. We don't need to put blind people on the street.
Yeah.
We just need to cut spending in anybody who's worked for the federal government in any capacity knows what happens when you get to the end of the fiscal year. Suddenly the floodgates open and they spend, all new computers, all new office furniture, whatever it takes, they're spending that. They just cut that. And the reason they don't is because they won't get as much money next year. And it's all about the budget.
Hey, Riley, I'll tell you what. I'll give you the money that the government saves from not enforcing hate crime laws to cover...
If they get rid of those laws?
Yeah, if they get rid of those laws, we can give you that money instead. Because...
That sounds like a good idea.
I can personally say, as somebody who's supposed to be protected, and I'm putting that in quotes here, protected by those laws...
Because you're a corporation?
Because he's gay.
No, because I'm gay. Anyway, hate crime laws are basically...
Riley's blind.
Right.
Chris is gay. I'm a straight white male. Hate me.
Right. Anyway, so the point is, these are laws that actually are used. They're basically they're used to abuse people, basically, for their opinions and thoughts. They may not be opinions and thoughts I would agree with. Don't get me wrong, but the point that I'm making is that they're basically, it's just a way of going after people that, for speech.
Yeah, who don't want to hire somebody because of something.
Right. So I am more than happy to give up those laws to protect me. Mm-hmm. And redirect that money to...
Have you felt protected by these laws so far?
No, I've only felt intimidated by the laws, by those laws. Because if I say something wrong, they could use those laws against the very people that they're supposedly to protect.
Yeah, because it's not like they go like, wait, we have this checklist. Are you gay, Mr. Penguin? Yes, I'm gay. And then it's like, oh, drat, we can't enforce your
right.
laws
No,
against you.
they'll throw that charge against me if they want to charge me with something else. It's it's like
then they can make it up because it's thought crimes. Like
right,
you're anti-Semitic today.
And there's no and it's very similar to sort of with the case with Ian when it comes to let's see, money laundering versus the thought crime of conspiracy to launder.
Yeah.
It's like they don't have to prove anything.
Well,
So
they made his conspiracy crime also a thought crime because they said that it was all based on.
That's what a conspiracy crime is. It's a thought crime.
Anyone. Well, there was two. The conspiracy is a thought crime because it's like, oh well, you knew you were helping someone else even though you never talked to them, and then the laundering itself was a thought crime because they said it was all based on anyone else should have known that it was suspicious, and so they're assuming that Ian is just like everyone else and thinks the same way as everyone else. Sorry,
right? The reasonable man standard.
We can easily get into Ian's trial at any time that gets brought up. So, yeah, my bad.
Yep. Ian's like Sheldon, only not funny.
He can be funny in his own way. One thing that's funny about Ian is the things he laughs about become infectious. Because, like, why are you laughing right now? Somebody's getting arrested. It's funny. But he doesn't make jokes.
Yeah, he's
Not
not
often.
he's not much for jokes. That's
He also
for
doesn't
sure.
get jokes. Like
Often.
you'll tell him a joke
Yeah,
and he'll
yeah.
just stare blankly at you. But Riley, did you have anything else to add about this situation going on?
No, I don't have that. I don't have anything else to add. Thank you.
Thank you for your call, Riley. And the number is 603-283-6160. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to say about disability?
Did you want me to read this six-penny plan?
Sure.
So we know what it is? I'm going to...
And this is actually Rand Paul's thing? Or
Yeah, this is from his site, paul.senate.gov. Six-penny plan has wide support. I'm just scrolling real quick to see if I can find the...
And is this like current? Is this something he's still trying to push, or is this like a thing he was trying to push and gave up?
I think this is dated 2024, so I'm going to presume he's still pushing it. The six-penny plan is a federal budget resolution that will balance on-budget outlays and revenues within 5 years by cutting 6 pennies off every dollar projected to be spent in the next 5 fiscal years. This plan is the most recent in a series of plans that Dr. Paul has introduced to address an ever-worsening budget crisis. In the 100 days between CBO's February and June, that's budget office, something budget office, February and June budget baselines, the federal government added an additional $540 billion to the national debt, an additional $1,600 per U.S. citizen. CBO's June estimates increased projected deficits by $2.5 trillion over interest payments. Let's see, reduced spending by $300 billion by the next year. In the first year, the plan would continue to cut 6% until balance in year 5, then allows spending to rise with the pace of revenues in the 5 years remaining. So based on revenue, the spending can increase, but hopefully it doesn't. And then,
but I don't understand, like, government things, do they make revenue? Does that mean tax?
Revenue is
collection?
tax
Okay.
revenue. So basically, it would cut this 6% off the budget, and then once they've reached budget parity, they're no longer running in the red, in a deficit, then they can raise after that. So,
And that's just if revenue is in the green?
if revenue's in the green, then taxes can rise by the amount that that it's in the green. Yes, and this, I mean, it seems to me that any government program can handle a 6% cut without howling and screaming. Really, where's the problem here? And this is budget. This would not, I presume, include Social Security or Medicare. Those are not considered part of the budget, discretionary spending.
Well, yeah, the crazy thing is that we've got laws and things that have been passed over the years, and maybe not so much like that. They're just regulatory kind of things, and they have absolutely no effect because they're going after phantom problems that don't exist. And Yeah, and it's just I just think it's crazy. But yeah, like I mean, they some of these programs to help the blind are definitely way better than some of the phantom programs that they fund.
I don't know an example of exactly about any of those, but
Yeah.
I totally believe it.
I'm trying to think of an example. I can't think of one at the moment, but there's phantom programs out there. Well, they're not. I mean, the programs aren't
Like
phantom,
black
but they're
budget
going after
stuff?
phantom issues. No. Phantom, as in like the problems don't exist. Like something happened at some point, and then
We're the department of not walking your donkey on Main Street on Tuesday nights because the clamoring feet is too loud.
Yeah, like maybe there's a department to regulate donkeys or something walking down Main Street, and it's like maybe at one time a donkey was killed on Main Street, and like they passed this whole program to like register and keep track of donkeys.
That makes sense.
Right? Like,
I can believe
like
that.
There was a tax on cell phones.
Why are we paying money to this program to do this thing when there's only ever been one person who's ever been killed, or one donkey that's ever been killed?
Have government workers lose jobs. Penguin, that's why.
Yeah.
There was a tax that was on cell phones that was recently, within the last few years, sort of repealed or at the very least renamed, because I don't feel like taxes on cell phones have diminished. But it was put in place somehow during the Spanish-American War, right? Like we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have phones back then. And the whole idea was somehow this was relevant, and it was, this revenue just needed to be taken.
It's the luxury tax you're talking about, right?
I can't remember what it was specifically it was about, but
Sounds kind of like the Bitcoin thing, how they used a law that was written before Bitcoin was invented.
Right.
Yeah, kind of. What happened was back in the day, like before telephones were common, they decided to tax telephones because, rich people had them.
Only rich people had them.
Right, only rich people had
Makes
them.
sense.
So it made a lot of sense. But and it funds, I don't even know what it funds. But anyway, this is like, and there's probably multiple taxes on like telephones, and they may have merged the programs, but the point is that there's these taxes that are just like, why are we paying these taxes? Like, and the
income tax was the same way. Income tax was brought in 1913 to only tax the top X percent, to 1, 2, 3%, whatever it was, the very richest people. And then, over time, it's like, well, why not make everybody pay their fair share? And
Well, it always starts
it
out
trickled
like that.
down to everybody.
Yeah.
It's like we were only going to close down for COVID for the 2 weeks, just 2 weeks to stop the spread.
It's really bad with the telephone because it's supposed to be this luxury tax, but then it's mandated. You have to have a telephone number whenever you do any kind of government anything, right? It's like, if you're going to make me have a telephone, how can you call it a luxury to have a telephone?
Well, it's gone now, right?
No, I don't think so. I think we're still paying it.
Wow.
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, I don't know 100% certainty, but there's
That's
definitely
one of my,
taxes
like,
paying on your
things-
cell phone service.
That's one of my 3 things that I know for sure I'm paying a tax on. I was just like, I don't pay taxes, but figured out I pay at least the tax when I get
Gasoline,
gas,
cell phones,
Yep.
and then property.
Yep.
But I don't count that as mine. It's Ian's.
There's probably a lot of other taxes you're paying that you don't even realize too. But
they're included in everything. When you eat out, in New Hampshire, you pay, I believe, 10%.
The state one. Yeah, it's like 8,
No,
right?
Is it 9%? I think.
I don't know, but that's a state one that's meals and rooms.
The
tax,
good news
yeah.
is New
At least
Hampshire
I don't
doesn't have
do
an
that
army.
much.
Yeah, rooms as in hotel rooms, not if you rent a room.
Yep, yeah. So it's like hotel rooms and meals that you buy.
That are hot. They have to be hot. Something like that.
Or at least made in a restaurant, but not food at the grocery store is not taxed like that. So, and I make most of my food at home, so most of the time.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to
As
avoid
any
the tax.
good patriot does.
It's a good way to avoid a tax.
And avoid seed oils
Diabetes.
and
and seed oils.
high fructose corn syrup, God knows what, artificial colors and flavors and those kind of things.
I have to say, I did love paying for hot food tax free when there was there have been members in our community who cooked food for others, and of course, illegally because they weren't a restaurant and they didn't have the licenses and everything else, and even giving food out in Keene I think is illegal technically.
Yeah, that's a really, really nice service. Too bad people don't have it anymore. Oh no, service is a legal term. Just learned that yesterday on our show with Bear Arms.
Yes, right.
It's more Free Talk Live is coming up. It's 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever's on your mind. Trump third term coming up.
Free Talk Live.
The amount of young people being brought up on criminal charges, sex offender charges, for taking nude photos of themselves and putting them online. It's just so sad to see these people having their lives just rolled right over the top of by these prosecutors that want to make it look like they're doing something good, but they're not doing anything that's helping anyone. There's no victim in this case. When you hear the term child pornography, what should come to mind, if anything, should be the idea of forcing children into sexual scenes and videotaping or photographing them.
Forcing children or somebody...
Even if it's a child forcing another child, I think the force is the issue there. If you're talking about a 15-year-old girl voluntarily choosing to take a nude photo of herself to send to her boyfriend or to post online, no one forced her to do that.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. At least 144 people have been killed and more than 730 injured after a major earthquake hit Myanmar and neighbouring Thailand. Myanmar's military government has warned the death toll is expected to rise. Dozens of people are trapped, including construction workers in Bangkok, where a high-rise that was under construction collapsed. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports.
On Friday afternoon, a 7.7 magnitude quake hit the northwest city of Sagaing in Myanmar at a shallow depth, according to the United States Geological Survey. A 6.4 magnitude aftershock hit the same area minutes later. There are reports buildings have fallen onto their sides, roads cracked open, and the well-known Ava Bridge has collapsed near the epicenter. Across the border in Thailand, where earthquakes are rare, the powerful tremors sent residents across many cities flooding into the streets in panic. In Bangkok, a 30-story building under construction has collapsed, and that's trapped dozens of workers. The quake prompted Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra to declare a state of emergency in Bangkok, where some metro and light rail services have been suspended, but the airport is operating as normal.
A US judge has ordered the Trump administration to preserve messages that were part of a group chat on the app Signal. Officials, including the US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, accidentally included a journalist in their discussions about airstrikes in Yemen. US District Judge James Boasberg has ordered the preservation of the messages that detailed attack plans on the Yemen-based Houthis group. It follows a lawsuit filed by a left-leaning group, American Oversight, demanding clarification on whether the officials violated federal record-keeping laws. Ukraine's president says the United States is constantly changing the details of a proposed minerals deal. The new proposal reportedly offers no long-term security guarantees for Ukraine, but ties it to a joint investment fund from the income of all its natural resources. FSN's William Denslow reports from Kiev.
US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has suggested this minerals deal could be signed as early as next week. But while noting that he's not necessarily against the proposal, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Thursday that Washington kept changing the terms of what he calls a major new deal. The current plan reportedly contains no security guarantees for Kyiv, something the country has repeatedly called for. But the US maintains that an economic partnership and increased footprint in the country would act as a deterrence against Russia.
Britain's King Charles has cancelled public engagements this Friday after experiencing side effects from his cancer treatment. He spent a short period in hospital on Thursday for observation. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Talk Live, talk radio that you control. That means you can call 603-283-6160 to bring up whatever topic is on your mind. Tell us what you think about what we're saying. Tell us we're wrong. It doesn't matter because it's Free Talk Live. And some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but didn't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive and click join at the top of the channel. It can be as little as $5 a month, and you'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, which it's enabled the members-only chat on the Odyssey channel. So visit video.freetalklive.com and click join at the top. On Free Talk Live with you tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Mr. Penguin,
and Mark Edge.
And we have a caller on the line, so I'm going to go straight to this unscreened caller. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey, Bonnie.
Oh.
I like your glasses.
Ew.
Do you like the way I destroyed Bear Arms yesterday?
No, you did terribly, horribly. Do you have anything to actually, like, did you go do further research and...
Destroyed him.
I heard you lost.
Did you notice, Bonnie? I got him to admit he switches the word includes with the word means. And he did it on the show. I just didn't catch it because I was talking.
No, I think that when you hung up, he started talking about that, and you probably just don't listen to the rest of the show. Oh, sorry, when I hung up on you. You're right. I didn't mean that. But when after you were on the show, he got into that, and it sounded perfectly logical to me. There's a definition for the word includes. Words don't mean in English what they mean in legalese. Sorry to cut you off.
It's defined in the code.
Yeah, exactly. And he read the definition. See, this is a really boring conversation for everyone else, Skeeter, because it's like they would have had to heard yesterday's episode and listen to your specific call and argument with.
She's right, Skeeter. I'm bored. Can you tell me something that will make me unbored?
Yeah. Anyways, this is not what I wanted to talk about.
Of course.
I want to talk about stop with this balancing the budget and cutting taxes nonsense. Have you idiots ever heard of unintended consequences? Huh?
Sure.
You guys need to stop perpetuating the myth that government uses taxpayer money to pay their spending deficit.
You're right. They do not.
Didn't we talked about that when you were on the phone yesterday?
They just print money and do what they want.
We all talked about this for a long time yesterday about how taxation doesn't fund the government.
So, Skeeter, I want to talk about that. Currently,
wait, I'm not done yet.
No. I want to ask you a question. There's a babe in arms.
A few more points. What's that?
There's a babe in arms currently, right now, that we are saying you must pay this ridiculous sum of money in order to live here in this great country. We have spent the money. And now you must pay for it. For what it is, for some little old lady to, get her operation or whatever the case might be, you, babe in arms, must pay for that. And you know how I know? Because the adults who are now dead spent my money that I now have to pay for.
That's also a myth too, Mark.
No, the fact is this country's been in debt since Andrew Jackson. Is that a myth too?
No, the fact that future taxpayers are on the hook.
Aren't we?
Current debt. No.
Then explain it to me how they're not.
Fiscal default. Look what's happening here in California. We're having a budget crisis that's forcing us to cut. Accelerationism works, Mark. We're even releasing prisoners.
He doesn't answer
because
questions.
of our budget crisis.
Skeeter, California has a balanced budget amendment.
You want the best way to get Ian out of prison? You create a big budget crisis. They're gonna let non-violent offenders out for early first.
They do nothing but spend more money, and that hasn't happened. So I don't know what you're talking about.
And Mr. Penguin, cutting taxes might give government more money. It's more likely it will give government more money. Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, you might actually have a point on that one to some degree.
You want to perpetuate the myth that government is efficient?
They just spend more money every single year, and that hasn't broken out prisoners.
Yeah, I mean, basically, he's kind of got something here with in terms of like when the government increases taxes, they like end up collecting less in revenue. So
yes, because that decreases that. If it depends how the economy reacts to that. If you cut taxes 50% and the economy goes up by double, what happens to their tax revenue? Nothing.
Okay.
Right? So and it doesn't.
Skeeter,
that doesn't follow
can you help me? Because I didn't hear an answer to my question.
That's what he does. He just says no, and then he starts talking about something else.
I get your accelerationism that you're talking about, and I think that there's something to the statement. Now, it's violence against your neighbor.
And it's utilitarianism. which he calls it.
And if it's true, let's just assume it's true just for a moment.
What's
to
true?
see the consequences.
I hate pronouns. I'm really bad at them.
Government stronger. You could be making government stronger and create more damage in the long run.
Okay.
You guys got to consider that fact.
How could I be creating? By Rand Paul's 6-penny plan makes the United States government stronger and thus more dangerous, and it causes more harm in the future. Is that right?
Yeah, because it makes them last longer.
Gotcha. Okay, I understand the concept at least you're trying to say. There's a babe in arms right now that we, the American people, are declaring you must pay a debt that we are currently. What's that?
A default, if you get the government budget crisis bad enough, they don't have to pay. Budget default doesn't relieve them of any.
That doesn't make it a fallacy. Listen, Skeeter. That doesn't make it a fallacy because what he's saying is that like what we're telling them right now is that they will have to pay this debt, and you're saying, well, what if it like all comes crashing down? That
if we make the debt big enough, then it goes away.
That doesn't make what Mark is saying wrong.
I just don't think that's right, Skeeter. So essentially, if somebody's going to go into bankruptcy, they go on a big spending spree with the last of their credit out there, and they say, let's just spend everything. That sounds wrong to me.
Good. No, whose money are they wasting on credit?
In the case of credit, it's banks.
Good. And whose money do they lend in order to give the government?
Well, it's kind of banks, but I mean, it would be bank money.
Government. First off, it's the people that get hurt are bondholders. Number two, they're pension holders. These are the people, even if it's from your bank account, these are the people that support government. These are the people that should be punished for bad spending, right?
Yeah, I understand the concept, and I've heard it many times.
Yeah.
The accelerationism, and all I can say is that I don't support violence against my neighbors, and I feel that increases in government spending are just that.
Violence. They're voluntary. Everybody that puts money in a bank account, everybody that buys a bond, everybody that works for the government that has a pension, these are all voluntary actions. They are voluntarily contributing, funding the government, and they should suffer the consequences of this budget of improper spending, inefficient spending. But that's not what I want to talk about. If we get rid of government, right, who's going to protect your precious Lockheed property? The market won't. The market won't.
Please explain to me why.
I don't know.
What makes you think that they're protecting it now?
Yeah, well,
I mean, they're more likely to come and seize it from you than they are to protect it.
The government has never protected my property, but if I needed to, like, there was somebody who tried to harm me on my front porch, and my neighbor with a gun protected my property, not the government. In fact, the police were called and didn't come.
Also, I had people on the air here, Skeeter, on the same air here, threaten to burn down my house with my child in it. I reported it to the authorities, and those same authorities decided that somehow I goaded that person, and therefore my problem to deal with. Mind you, that was the same month that they went after a guy who threatened Ben Shapiro. So they just decided which radio hosts they're going to enforce it against and which one they're not. And my guess is that they were already investigating Ian, and they're like, oh, this is Ian's business partner, screw him. And it was just like they get to do whatever they want. So when you say they're protecting your property, they're protecting your property.
They have no duty to protect
when they feel like it.
The cops.
But they have no duty to protect.
Yep. I'm done with this call with Skeeter because all he does is say, this is what I want to talk about every time you start having a conversation about things he says. We have Turd Ferguson in Pennsylvania on the line. Turd, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yo, what up? Free Talk Live, baby.
What's up? What's on your mind?
Is that Mark's girlfriend in the corner there? Mark's new girlfriend. She looks significantly younger than him. I always knew Mark Edge was extremely based, dating
Mark's
younger
married,
women.
isn't he?
I love it, dude.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Anyways, do you have
How do you
something
like my
else you want
tie?
to talk about?
Your tie is all red. Red ties indicate powerful men.
Although they
strong
indicate
men,
Republicans.
masculine men.
Trump's been wearing blue ties for a lot of the recent pictures.
I've noticed that too. Not necessarily recently, but every time Trump wears a blue tie, I'm like,
has he turned back Democrat?
Why would he wear blue? I wore reds to go vote for Trump.
Well, because he doesn't.
I like themes.
Because he's already the president. He's wearing it because he's already the president. He can focus on style now. He doesn't need to wear the red tie.
Yeah, and orange and blue complement each other.
He doesn't need to influence them.
Orange and blue are complementary colors, like opposites.
They really are, yeah.
And he wants to look as orange as possible because it's like part of his brand.
That's hilarious.
That's what I think. Otherwise, he wouldn't put on the bronzer.
Right about that. I also don't take Skeeter very seriously because he doesn't believe in intellectual property laws. Anybody that doesn't believe in intellectual property, I can't take seriously. Not to mention, I want absolutely nothing to do with Skeeter. Like, I don't want to be anything like that guy. So I'm so glad that I am based and believe in intellectual property, and he doesn't.
I didn't ever hear Skeeter specifically talk about that, but I don't believe in intellectual property laws.
So what's your favorite part about intellectual property?
Yeah, I'm the biggest advocate against it.
Because I'll tell you that it incentivizes people to produce things that make our lives better. Because when you have
is that when like the drug companies change one molecule in a drug and then re-release it and push the
well, look, I mean,
go ahead.
If you want to talk about reforming intellectual property laws, I can have that conversation with you because I agree there are a bunch that need reformation.
And they're kind of rife with problems.
Some of them are, yeah. The one specifically as far as art goes, I mean, they've got some problems, but a lot less of them than the drug companies' IP laws that they rely on. They're a lot
what about
better. And
Ice-T? Vanilla Ice.
Oh,
do you remember the famous MTV?
I think you're thinking of Metallica.
No, I'm thinking specifically of Vanilla Ice. There's a scene where he goes.
You mean how he sampled the Queen song?
Right. So what he says is there's a their line goes their riff goes their bass line goes doom 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 da doom doom, and mine goes doom 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 doom, and and this is like as famous as it gets, and I don't know what to do with it because I believe strongly that Ice Ice Baby, I mean, that's a great hit. That is a wonderful song. And we wouldn't have it.
I don't know the other song. I still don't know the other song.
Under Pressure. It's not Queen's greatest hit.
Under Pressure.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
But it's gotten more play since Ice-T Vanilla Ice than before. And all I can say is that it seems pretty obvious that he took that as an inspiration for his song.
And all that it would take is the people Queen saying, so okay, we allow it. How is that a moral judgment? Okay, we allow it or not. Like all it comes down to is people understanding that getting more wait, listen to it. All that it takes to make it moral or not moral is those people understanding or not understanding that any kind of publicity is good publicity and it's going to make them more money. Because the thing is, like with Metallica, they were like really hardline against letting people use their music. So all they did was miss out on fans. Like there's no morality.
Okay,
It's not better. It's not more moral to not take a riff from a song or whatever you call that you were singing.
Baseline in this case.
Baseline from a song, and say I'm going to make my own baseline because it couldn't possibly take Queen's. Than it is to use the same baseline and change every single thing else about the song. Totally two different songs. There's nothing immoral about it. Like if Queen just said, "Yeah, sure, you can do that," that somehow changes it. Changes the morality of the situation.
Well, I'm not talking about. Okay. Well, do you want me to respond to it now?
Yes.
I'll respond to all those things. And I'm sorry, it was actually David Bowie and Queen. It was the two of them combined. And
was it?
Vanilla Ice. Vanilla Ice owes money to Queen and David Bowie because he basically copied the bass line.
I'm owed money by all the girls in high school who copied my makeup. That's the thing. Every girl has had a situation like that. It is an interesting
point to make, right? Like, hold on, Turd. I'm going to make a point that's an interesting juxtaposition. If you create as a musician a bass line, you can, according to U.S. law, say this bass line is mine. Now, if you are a handbag creator, like Kate Spade, you can't say this handbag design is mine.
Interesting.
So you can't copyright or patent that. How do I know that? I've done this show for 20 years.
Yeah, he's right.
You can copyright a logo. So if you make a Louis Vuitton bag and somebody puts the Louis Vuitton logo on it, then
you copyright the brand. And
yes,
that's
but
fine. And by the way, if there's something particularly unique or some new technology that you created to create the handbag, you might be able to patent that. It would be up to the courts on a case-by-case basis, and that's the way it should
you can't patent
not the design.
I mean, something super there might be some aspect that you could patent, but basically the cut of material cannot be patented.
Yep.
There's been a trend.
As the case may be.
Material that everyone can use. I mean,
well, let's talk about this for a second.
I can't copyright leather because cows are ubiquitous. You know what
Sure,
I mean?
I'm not talking about the material. I'm talking about the cut of the stuff. I mean, and noise is ubiquitous too. But you decide that a bass line, this particular set of notes thrown together, there's only a certain amount of notes that you can do. And
if I accidentally drop a can and it makes that sound.
But there's infinite combinations of notes.
I don't think there is.
There's only 8 chords and there's only 7
There's
chords.
not.
There's only 7 chords in a key, but there's infinite combinations of chord progressions. And you can't, and by the way, you
I
can't
don't think
copyright
infinite would be
chord progression,
correct.
but
Probably a
songwriter
large
can
number.
copyright
No,
it.
because they start to repeat at some point.
And a record company can copyright a recording. And that's the way it should be. Because if I spend my lifetime recording a song or writing a song...
No. Hold on.
Your whole
Hold
lifetime.
on. You have the right to try to make money off of your work. Nobody should be obligated to give you money, though, for it.
And I also have a legal right to patent, and I also have a legal right to copyright.
You do, but you should.
That's the way it should
Legal.
be.
Yeah.
Right. Like, well, this is an artificial creation that it's an artificial creation that was sold to us for.
Let me just say this too. Let me just say this. Okay, got it, Chris. Let me just say this. The only people that I ever hear talking about how you shouldn't be able to copyright intellectual property are people that really haven't created that like particularly good stuff. You know what I mean?
Free Talk Live has a 20-year library. We have a 20-year library.
Man.
We were the #1 podcast in the world month after month before Joe Rogan showed up. We were the best political podcast in the world 5 times. And you can use all of our stuff in any way you want because Ian says so. I've tried to stop people who have edited the material in order to change the things we say, and Ian won't even let me pull that off the air. Bald-faced lies that are damaging to Free Talk Live's reputation. He won't let me pull that off the air.
Yeah.
So, there are some people who advocate so fiercely against intellectual property that they will harm themselves.
And
you're on.
Well, and by the way, Mark, let me just say this too. I actually agree with free use and valid free use cases where people can say things or do commentary over pieces of the show that you do.
Yeah, me too.
So I agree that if somebody wants to say something about Ian's problematic sexual views or whatever the video name that you're
They're only
talking
problematic
about
when you mismatch them and lie.
You lie.
Right? And you manipulate them to say something to make it look like he's saying something completely different than what he actually said.
Okay, well, I don't know how they edited it, and if they misleadingly edited the clip, then maybe you've got a point. But I don't know if they did that. The only thing that I've heard is the clip.
Yep.
And before I go on, let me just say it does sound problematic to me, but that's another story. But I'll also say this: if I sample somebody else's recording and I use it in my song, then I should pay the person who originally created the recording some part of the profit that I make on the song. It doesn't have to be the whole thing.
I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a fair thing.
Right now, you have to pay.
I think that if you can, like, the problem is that we have this sort of state apparatus in the middle, and the lawyers get paid, not the individual. And so I don't know how much the right amount to give Queen out of Ice Ice Baby is, But I would agree that there's really something. It seems
it should be 30%.
that seems like a high number.
That's
You
insane.
give Queen and David Bowie 30% of the royalties of the song. And there are,
Why?
3 or 4 people in Queen and plus
Because
David
they
Bowie,
had an
they should
inspiration one day
divide
from God
that
to make a
30% by the
noise,
5
and this
people,
other
that's
person
6%
liked that
each.
noise
That's the
and
way
used
that
it in their
math
song.
work, and that's the right way to do it.
I don't know why it's 30%.
Everything about
but you can
copyright is
compete. You can compete in the marketplace as an arbiter, and I think that would be the best way to handle it.
Everything about this is arbitrary. Like there's no rhyme or reason for any of it. I mean, it started off at the copyright started off at 7 years, and it's now
just like Chris Talk.
It's okay. So copyright started off under the argument that it was supposed to be for the promotion of the arts and sciences, basically, and it wasn't supposed to be like it was supposed to be limited to 7 years, because after that point, the whole objective was to promote that so that the public would benefit. But that's not the way the copyright works today. Copyright, when something is copyrighted, first of all, it's copyrighted by default. And not only that, but copyright extends probably, so it depends a little bit depending on whether it's a corporation or an individual, but it's something like 100 years, like plus the life of the author. It's something like that. So like nothing that's produced today will actually end up being something that you can use without paying somebody money, short of somebody putting it into the public domain explicitly.
And you know how he said the only people he hears talking against IP laws or people who didn't create anything. The only people I hear who are vehemently obsessed with it like this are people that think they deserve to be paid for like sitting around making art and not necessarily doing things that are as productive as they could be doing.
I think you got something there.
Studio Ghibli right now is pissed off that there's a trend going on because Studio Ghibli is this anime house.
Yep.
And people are like, oh, look, here's my profile picture, but in the style of Studio Ghibli, OpenAI made it, or Grok from Twitter, the AI, made it, and here I'm posting it here. And Studio Ghibli has been like trying to put a stop to this because it's their style. And I saw it reported.
I don't know how they're going to be able to pull that off.
Yeah, that they have few options and. Yeah.
What copyright does is it produces, it gives companies an ability to have a certain business model, but nothing says you can't make money off of your creative talents without copyright. And I speak of this from experience. I have a company. I produce software for routers. The software is given away. It works on other companies' products. You can flash it yourself. There's some other companies that ship with the software as well. But we still make money off of selling the routers, and we also make money from other, through donations.
Creative and productive.
Yeah, through donations and, other means. And there's a ton of YouTubers, same thing. They don't necessarily make money directly off the content they produce, but they make money off of the advertising or the t-shirts they sell or whatnot. And if you look at the music industry, most of your artists, they're not making money off of the copyright. They're making money off of things like selling t-shirts or concerts.
That's these days. And one of the arguments is all the bass lines have been used up. Right? People.
No, it's infinite.
People complain today that modern music stinks because rappers can essentially, and because so much of it is rap, because rappers can essentially just keep on coming up with new content, just like a talk show host, right? New unique content. Whereas the bass lines, they're all copyrighted. Yeah, you can make some random gobbledygook, but nobody wants to listen to it.
Oh, that's a great explanation for why electronic music is so much better than the freaking guitars that people think are somehow superior. As if like classical musicians wouldn't think that the guitar rock is so much inferior to their music. More Free Talk Live coming up.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
Protection. Eleutheromania. The insatiable desire for freedom.
Filibuster. Police state.
It's the new 3-song heavy metal EP from Captain Kickass. Available now on your favorite music app or get it directly from CaptainKickass.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper with the Week in Review. This week, The Atlantic magazine in the United States published attack plans shared by Donald Trump's officials in a group chat that mistakenly included the magazine's editor. The White House tried to downplay the security blunder about plans to strike Houthi rebels in Yemen. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said someone made a big mistake. Ever since Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
Like the rest of the Trump administration, Marco Rubio said the details in the chat did not amount to classified material. But Democrats and some Republicans have argued the discussion of the timing and weapons used, along with the addition of a journalist to the group, amounted to a serious failure of national security practices. Secretary Rubio did acknowledge that the information was not intended to be divulged to the public, and that was a mistake that shouldn't have happened, adding he thinks there will be reforms and changes. Kate Fisher, Washington.
This week, Donald Trump announced a 25% tariff on all automobiles imported into the United States. The US president said the move was intended to boost domestic manufacturing, but it's expected to raise car prices for US buyers. There was an angry global reaction. FSN's Iris Spitzer has more.
The U.S. president announced the new tariffs during a televised address in the Oval Office, saying that they will go into effect on April 2nd.
And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
The tariffs will have an immediate impact on the U.S. car market, where nearly half of all vehicles are currently assembled outside of the country. Mexico is the top foreign supplier of cars to the U.S., and the U.S. automakers who have plants there won't be exempt from the new tariffs.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and U.S. Second Lady Usha Vance were forced to downgrade a trip to Greenland this week to one of the United States military bases. It follows weeks of comments by the U.S. president that America should acquire Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark. Ever since Caroline Malone reported on the run-up to the controversial visit.
No more trips to see a dog sledding race or historical sites for Usha Vance. Instead, joined by J.D. Vance, the pair will only head to the Pitofik Air Base, the US northernmost installation which contributes to missile defence and space surveillance. Usha Vance had been due to go it alone on a cultural exchange, but not in an official capacity, ruffling feathers, especially given US President Donald Trump has said he'll do whatever is necessary to acquire Greenland. Only 6% of Greenlanders polled would want to join the US. 84% also want full sovereignty from Denmark.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. A powerful earthquake hit the Asian nations of Myanmar and Thailand on Friday, killing scores of people. In the Thai capital Bangkok, an under-construction skyscraper collapsed. Ever since Laura Westbrook sent this report shortly after the news of the quake was confirmed.
On Friday afternoon, a 7.7 magnitude quake hit the northwest city of Sagaing in Myanmar at a shallow depth, according to the United States Geological Survey. A 6.4 magnitude aftershock hit the same area minutes later. There are reports buildings have fallen onto their sides, roads cracked open, and the well-known Ava Bridge has collapsed near the epicenter. Across the border in Thailand, where earthquakes are rare, the powerful tremors sent residents across many cities flooding into the streets in panic. In Bangkok, a 30-story building under construction has collapsed, and that's trapped dozens of workers. Laura Westbrook, Hong Kong.
This week, France held the latest Ukraine support summit in Paris, attended by 30 countries, plus the EU and NATO. Host President Emmanuel Macron announced another $2 billion in military assistance from France for Ukraine, including missiles, drones and armoured vehicles. FSN's Ross Cullen reports from Paris.
Emmanuel Macron is hosting European leaders and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Paris on Thursday in a summit that's being co-chaired by the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. One of the key goals will be discussions around a Franco-British plan for a so-called reassurance force of thousands of troops to be potentially deployed in Ukraine after a peace agreement. The plan has been dismissed by the US, but London and Paris are serious about the idea, with Macron saying on the eve of the conference that any Western forces invited into Ukraine by Kiev would respond to any attack on them from Russia. Ross Cullen, Paris.
And that's the Week in Review. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Researchers were able to successfully teach a father how to communicate his emotions with rudimentary hand gestures. The stunning development happened after Stanford researchers spent 9 months trying to train 42-year-old Pittsburgh father Ron Myers to express simple sentiments like pride and love in a way few thought possible. To conduct the study, researchers used large, simplistic diagrams depicting hand gestures a dad might use to show emotion in a way Ron could easily comprehend.
We would often leave Band of Brothers or 30 for 30 reruns on to help him stay comfortable.
When Ron was able to successfully identify an emotion, he was given rewards to reinforce good behavior, including buffalo wings or a moment to read a page of a Tom Clancy novel. Despite Ron's breakthrough, researchers say he still has a way to go before achieving full emotional maturity, as after several months of work with Ron, he still retreats to the corner of the lab to look up drywalling techniques on the internet whenever his real family drops by to see him.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That means you can call that number to bring up any topic that's on your mind. Can't get in on those other shows where they screen and they force you to talk about the topics they want to talk about. Call into Free Talk Live and bring up whatever's on your mind, and that's 603-283-6160. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Mr. Penguin.
And Mark Edge.
And we've been podcasting since podcasts began, but we're launching a new podcast anyway. Our new podcast is a 30 to 45-minute show releasing once a week. You can find it at freetalkcast.com. It's brought to you by the same people who bring you Free Talk Live, and we'd love for you to check it out. The existing radio archive isn't going anywhere. This is just a new show designed from the start to be a podcast, so check it out at freetalkcast.com. And tonight, since it's the live show and we are taking calls, let's take Sarah from New Mexico, your call. What's on your mind?
Oh, yeah. I was watching PBS the other day, and they had a harmless community in one of the suburbs of Phoenix. And so the edge of on the outskirts, you could get like a hybrid electric car, plug-in. And also, they got Waymo running around. They got them up and running in Phoenix.
What's Waymo?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Waymo, the self-driving taxi.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, they're up and running, and they're, it's going. So I just hope that they move them. They come over here. I mean,
so
Arizona's next door.
So that is pretty cool. If there was a self-driving taxi in Keene, I wonder if Riley would be interested in that.
Riley is he's the one that's blind.
Yeah,
can't see.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, you know what? That'll be really wonderful. And I'm afraid that Albuquerque, we need those taxis the most. And usually it's always like the last place to get it.
It's got to be better than New Mexicans driving.
So, Sarah, I know that you're deeply concerned with automobile accidents, and I do think that these computer drivers will probably minimize the amount of accidents. But something that's always stuck in my mind that I can't really solve is who's at fault. So there will be an accident, right? Maybe there's 30,000 traffic fatalities per year. And if let's go crazy and say that, self-driving cars minimizes that down to 99%. It cuts it by 99%. There's still 1% left. And what is that? 330 people died, right? And that is a tremendous number when you're talking about insurance claims, especially if you don't know who's supposed to pay. So is it the owner of the car that pays? Well, hey, I wasn't driving. The company that made the AI that's driving? Is it the car manufacturer that's driving? Like who has to pay?
Do you think? Well, I mean, if there's about, I think around 40,000 auto-related crashes right now.
Yeah, I thought it was 33,000, but all right, it's close enough.
Well, I mean, don't you think that is car insurance companies right now are paying out for all of that?
Yeah.
So 300 people getting killed. Why would that be a costly endeavor? It'd be like reduction in like 90%, 99% of the insurance claim that you have to pay out for fixing the automobile, fixing people, the hospital bill, and all that. What is that an argument?
I don't know who. So who pays so if the insurance company pays, right? Then who's paying the bill? Who's responsible? Because ultimately somebody's responsible, right? I have insurance because if I get into an automobile accident, I might be the one who's responsible.
Well, I don't know about all that, but here in New Mexico, nobody knows how to drive. They all run the stop sign, red light. 5 cars run the red light in a row, and they can't read anything that they put up. I mean, we need those cars. I don't know about all this costing.
So what Sarah's saying, sorry to cut you off, she said that they can't read anything that they put up. It's a really good point. She said that there's people in New Mexico that have that are driving that can't speak English, and she was pointing out this one sign she saw that was like, do not turn left except for the case of a green arrow. And it's like, if you can't speak English,
that's not going to work.
That's not just a big red stop sign.
They've got one like that. They got a sign like that in Keene, actually, and I always think, same thing. It's like,
well, I think that in that case, you wouldn't go when you have the opportunity to go, which isn't the worst traffic situation. Somebody who's sitting there and not moving isn't as big of a hindrance as.
Well, Sarah actually brought up somebody that went when on this left hit a pedestrian who actually was allowed to walk, and it was because of the yielding.
Yeah.
I have to wonder though if they actually were not violating the indication, what was it, like a left arrow or something like that indicator itself.
Left arrow, most complicated.
Because those indicators have meanings independent of the signs being there often. So it might be that that we're still breaking the law and they should have known whether independent of the language barrier. It's just sort of like a reminder of what the law is in regards to that indicator.
That's a good point because they were just supposed to be yielding to pedestrians, but it was a complicated area to yield to pedestrians. Really, the little sign that lit up and told that pedestrian he should walk shouldn't have, but yeah.
Well, this intersection have the left does have their own arrow, but they got rid of the U signal, the little picture, the arrow with a U thing. I was looking for that, and it says, do not turn left on the red. Okay, and then I complained to the mayor. I called the mayor's office. It's like, how is that supposed to stop 5 cars turning a left on the red? So the next day they put up this sign, turn left only on the arrow. And then I'm thinking to myself, well,
she called in and complained, and they changed the sign.
That's impressive.
Yeah, right. Turn left only on the arrow. So I'm thinking, like, well, how is this sign any better than the other sign? And then they got rid of the.
It's not any better if you can't speak English.
Yeah, I mean, they could probably have just gotten rid of the sign altogether in English, and it should have, in theory, you should have already known based on the indicator of the sign that you shouldn't have taken a left on a red arrow. Like, that's the default? Like, that's what you would expect.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking of it, why would anybody turn left on a red arrow?
Right, like, that doesn't make sense. Red is to stop, and green is to go.
And most places in the U.S. are going to roundabouts or rotaries or whatever you want to call them. And
well, most places. That's,
oh yeah, they are.
That's going to be.
It's increasing
bad
the number
for
of
the new Mexicans, because Sarah told us that they put in a roundabout and they didn't understand it, so they're driving straight through it through the. There's not like Sarah wanted them to put a big concrete statue in the middle because they're driving straight through it because there's just like a bump.
It's hilarious.
Well, it turns out that the ambulances, the fire trucks, they have that. Like that on purpose. When they have to run over it, it was there for, they could go right in the middle of it. That's why they have it like that.
Yeah, but the average person isn't supposed to do that. Yeah, and it's also for like if I saw a semi truck go in a small traffic circle the other day, and I was like, how do they do this? So I watched, and they're able to drive a bit on that median because they can't make it either way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it exists like that, and why they wouldn't put Sarah's giant statue there. She wanted them to put a statue so they would slam into it.
Yeah, so instead of all this, Phoenix got them up and running, even though they had problems, accidents in California. That doesn't stop them. I see that people are riding around in it. So I just wanted to catch on. So that I know 3 people that are illiterate. They can't read. So I'm thinking there's many people that are reading at third grade level here in Albuquerque. Why are they don't obey the signal light. They're not going to obey the first sign. They're not going to obey the second sign. They know what the arrow picture means. And everybody does whatever they want here. And then many people are illiterate, and then they don't even speak English. They can't even read a sign. So what good does it do?
Sarah, when you first used to talk about self-driving cars, I was really I was hesitant. I didn't like the idea. I think my stance has changed because driving around in like Boston and Boston area in the last year, people are so bad at driving, and they're all so like, I don't know if they're all on like these like psych meds or something, and they're just so bad at making decisions. I think that'd be better if cars are self-driving, and then I can choose to drive my own car, because that's always been my problem. Is I don't want to be in a self-driving car that drives off the highway, because sometimes they think you're on the bottom when you're on the top. It happens all the time on Google Maps.
There's certainly a danger in self-driving cars, in that at some point the government will come in and they will say you can't drive your own car anymore. You have to have a
That's like a slippery slope, I guess.
Yeah, but that's where it always goes. That's because it's a safety argument.
If a driver-driven car is 10 times as dangerous as a computer-driven car, why would we let them on the road?
Because they should have the freedom to do
right.
it.
Like there's a thing of freedom, right? Like it's such a poor argument to say, well, if it will just make us a little bit safer, well, we should do it. No. You eventually end up in like a cage, like a literal cage. If we put you in a cage,
with a self-driving car,
you will also not be hit by a car, right?
Driving.
Because you'll never go out, but at the same time you'll end up starving to death because you can't feed yourself, because you can't make the money, which the car enabled you to go to a job and actually, right? Like, I mean, you can make yourself safer by simply outlawing vehicles, right? Like, I mean, you can keep going with this.
You cannot go on the roads if you're so scared of the 30%.
Right.
Well, I'm not scared of the 1%. What I'm thinking is that at some point those people simply just won't drive, because I mean, it's like speaking Irish. There was a time when most people in Ireland spoke Irish.
Then it got very dangerous.
And then it got dangerous to speak Irish.
Are you serious?
Sure, the English didn't like it very much.
Oh, well, I don't know if that's exactly the same thing.
And now almost nobody speaks Irish, because English is a better language and works better.
One of my family members, maybe I shouldn't say who, always is really siding historically with the English and the Scottish over the Irish. So I guess I got kind of propagandized in that way. But I'm not saying I love anybody more than the next. But I asked ChatGPT historically who was worse to the other, England or Ireland, and it was just like, oh, England was much worse than the Irish, and most of what the Irish did was retaliatory to the English, and it was news to me.
And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're Irish, and that makes you a traitor, correct?
A traitor to whom?
I don't know. Traitor to the Irish. To your people.
I just think that the Irish I think that language is for communication, and if you're trying to force it on your children, trying to force them to learn a language to preserve some old culture, that's akin to child abuse.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's just if a kid, they can learn a million languages, and it's not like some kind of extra effort. If
you forced your kid to learn Irish and only Irish, I'll go ahead and say that's child abuse.
Well, sure, because it's like they don't have the same
well, I mean, kids are going to pick up on language independent of you like teaching it to them or not, right? As if they're allowed around it anyway.
What if you keep them at home and let them go to bed whenever they want?
That seems like a bigger problem to me.
Are you calling it child abuse or?
If you raised your kid to believe that somehow they were going to communicate with the world by speaking this nearly dead, archaic language that only allows them to read the scribblings of drunken poets, right? then yes, I believe that would be a form of psychological abuse.
So that includes a lie too. It's not like that would be if you cause them to believe that. But if you were like, yeah, these other people speak English, we don't want to speak English. We only want to speak. I don't even know if it's called abuse. Irish, right?
If your judgment is so bad and you're so twisted with hate that you are like, in the country of Ireland, they have printed in this dead language that almost nobody exclusively speaks. Like dozens of people might exclusively speak this language.
Mm-hmm.
The top language is written in this gobbledygook.
And is it called Irish? Is it called Gaelic
Irish,
or something? Oh.
Whatever it is, Irish Gaelic. And then the bottom one's in English. The world's largest language that people are struggling to read.
Just to spite them?
They pay double to print their signs twice as large. They rob twice as much tax money from people.
This is a theft issue for you, clearly.
It's just so stupid, so utterly dumb. And you can pull out Irish and you can stick Hawaiian in here. There's a variety of languages. Now, I can do it because I'm Irish in part, and people give me more credence in this particular area. But this is how I feel about lots of languages. Lots and lots of them. They're garbage. Let them be historical garbage. Speak them into Google so that Google has them, so that we now have a historical record of these things, so we know how to say broken pottery and dead language in Irish, and then speak English because that's what everybody else is speaking.
Well, I think it's kind of funny and cool, other than the theft part.
By the way, my email is mark@freetalklive.com, so you can call me and cuss me out over what I think about the Irish language, and I'll just write you back something in gobbledygook, and you can try to figure it out.
I think it's cool for them to be that defiant, other than the fact that they're like stealing from the taxpayer to just do dumb things that are just making a symbolic gestures. Yeah, I don't know. I think that if the English treated me the way that they treated the Irish, I probably would be a little...
There isn't a living Irish person who is treated bad by the English. I suppose that in Northern Ireland there might have some. So what? You are not your ancestor. Yeah. My ancestors were owned by the Romans. Should I go around punching Italians in the face? That's dumb.
I would say it still affects people that I know, that the Civil War still affects people that I know.
With the Civil War, the part where the Americans conscribed Irish to fight on their side, and so they won.
I'm not talking about Irish right now.
Okay,
I'm not talking about the Irish right now. I'm just saying, I understand people saying that, even though it didn't happen to me, it happened to my whole people and ancestors, and over many, many years, because it wasn't just the war itself; it was Reconstruction, and I hate Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, but you know it's okay. So the problem with this is that it's actually more recent than that. We had laws. We had the. I'm trying to think what the blue. What was it? What were the laws that where they basically regulated like what drinking fountain you can have? We had that in the 60s, right?
Oh, segregation
Sure,
laws.
segregation. Sure.
Jim Crow.
Are you thinking of redlining in
maybe?
Chicago?
No, well,
So
that too. But
you mentioned the color.
But yeah. I mean, basically, there was discrimination against people of color, right? Much more recently than the Civil War, right? So it's not really the Civil War that is still affecting people today.
In her case, she's talking about the other side.
Yeah, I'm talking about the other side.
All I can say is that no, I don't. I don't support you being mad because Grandpa's mad,
Grandpa's mad.
Yeah, Grandpa's mad. I gotcha. and Grandpa can have all the complaints he wants to about it, but at some point or another, you have to let it go. Let me make my point.
I think it. Wait, sorry.
Go ahead.
It's important to at least remember what happened, though, because that should never be
history's
repeated.
important, and I support.
And if it makes me a little mad, that's fuel.
I support taking down the Basque language and looking at it, and those kind of things. Like I want to know how they used it, and that sort of thing.
Taking it down like that. I thought
Yeah.
you meant like taking it down.
No, transcribing it, and
Yeah.
historically, cataloging it, that kind of thing. I think that's important. But if you're a Cuban who's mad because your great grandfather lost property when Batista went down, I mean, how are we going to fix that? Exactly how is that going to be fixed? You might be mad, but I don't think you have a solution. If you believe somehow your Palestinian ancestors were kicked out of their ancestral home by the Israelis in the 1940s, how are we going to fix that? If you're a Mohawk Indian, you have one drop of Mohawk blood, because there isn't a pure Mohawk Indian left. If you have one drop of Mohawk or whatever Abenaki, that's the one I was thinking of. One drop of Abenaki blood here in New Hampshire, and you want somebody to give up their property for you? Like, what's the solution to this property, to this problem? And it's just not going to work. These are complaints. They're not solutions.
I think that there is a solution, and it's that the South should be allowed to secede.
The South isn't going to secede together anymore. Like, the South isn't going to secede, and they certainly aren't going to secede.
It's not cohesive enough?
I don't support the South seceding over what they seceded over.
I do.
Oh, I don't
slavery?
know about that.
The right to own people?
That's just
Hold
because
on.
you believe that it was over slavery.
Yeah,
it was.
It was not over
was not.
slavery.
4 states literally stated that the right to keep and hold slaves was like one of the reasons that they're leaving. It was among their declarations.
Even if it was one of
The
their
North
reasons, I
had
don't think it was the
slaves
major reason.
after or during the war, during
4
the
states,
Civil War.
The borderline states, the North had areas, the Mason-Dixon line. You couldn't own slaves above that, and then
when the president, when Lincoln freed the slaves,
yes,
he didn't free the slaves in the North. He only freed them in the South.
That's correct. But after Lincoln died and they went into the Reconstruction period, all the slaves in all of the United States, the reconstructed United States. I don't support the Civil War. I'm simply saying I know, as a Southerner, why the South seceded.
I will also just take it further and say that I support the South seceding over slavery, because why should you be forced to be in a contract with
I have
something?
I have a different perspective on this. I think the South should not have had the slaves. They should have gotten rid of slavery,
I agree
but
with
they
that
should have
too.
seceded.
Okay, well, that is also what I'm saying. I'm just saying,
Right? Like-
I'm not a slave owner, so I'm talking about other people here. And in fact, in my family, my mom is like really, really looked at my family, and it looks like one family had slaves, gave them up to work with the North, so that's just like awful that they decided to work with the North.
Yep.
And another part of my family owned slaves way further back in Massachusetts, and it was an Irish boy, and they went to prison for mistreating him.
I thought my family had some sketchy histories, man. My grandfather owned a sweatshop, but you guys are even worse.
Well, we do have a caller on the line. We have Kadu in Connecticut. Kadu, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I just have one very important statement that I want to quote and then hang up for dramatic effect.
Go
Seed
ahead.
oils make your brain small.
Seed oils do make your brain small. Yesterday, Jay Noon was on, and he said that he went to a restaurant recently, and the waitress was just pissed when she saw kids coming at the table, which is just so rude. And of course, like, how do you think you're going to get a tip at that point? And everything that Jay said annoyed her. And he asked, oh, is this butter or is it like that seed oil spread? And she said, what difference does it make? Because as I predicted, this has become politicalized, and you're going to be seen as a right-winger if you don't like seed oils. But anyways, Jay Noon's son said, and he's 3, mind you, Jay Noon's son said, seed oils make your brain small. It's awesome. And true. Makes your brain dumb. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. That's 603-283-6160. What do you think about what we've been talking about? Or change the subject. It's up to you. More Free Talk Live coming up.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first, nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. At least 144 people have been killed and more than 730 injured after a major earthquake hit Myanmar and neighbouring Thailand. Myanmar's military government has warned the death toll is expected to rise. Dozens of people are trapped, including construction workers in Bangkok, where a high-rise that was under construction collapsed. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports.
On Friday afternoon, a 7.7 magnitude quake hit the northwest city of Sagaing in Myanmar at a shallow depth, according to the United States Geological Survey. A 6.4 magnitude aftershock hit the same area minutes later. There are reports buildings have fallen onto their sides, roads cracked open, and the well-known Ava Bridge has collapsed near the epicenter. Across the border in Thailand, where earthquakes are rare, the powerful tremors sent residents across many cities flooding into the streets in panic. In Bangkok, a 30-story building under construction has collapsed, and that's trapped dozens of workers. The quake prompted Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra to declare a state of emergency in Bangkok, where some metro and light rail services have been suspended, but the airport is operating as normal.
A US judge has ordered the Trump administration to preserve messages that were part of a group chat on the app Signal. Officials, including the US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, accidentally included a journalist in their discussions about airstrikes in Yemen. US District Judge James Boasberg has ordered the preservation of the messages that detailed attack plans on the Yemen-based Houthis group. It follows a lawsuit filed by a left-leaning group, American Oversight, demanding clarification on whether the officials violated federal record-keeping laws. Ukraine's president says the United States is constantly changing the details of a proposed minerals deal. The new proposal reportedly offers no long-term security guarantees for Ukraine, but ties it to a joint investment fund from the income of all its natural resources. FSN's William Denslow reports from Kiev.
US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has suggested this minerals deal could be signed as early as next week. But while noting that he's not necessarily against the proposal, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said Thursday that Washington kept changing the terms of what he calls a major new deal. The current plan reportedly contains no security guarantees for Kyiv, something the country has repeatedly called for. But the US maintains that an economic partnership and increased footprint in the country would act as a deterrence against Russia.
Britain's King Charles has cancelled public engagements this Friday after experiencing side effects from his cancer treatment. He spent a short period in hospital on Thursday for observation. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and that means you can call 603-283-6160 during this last segment of the show. 603-283-6160. Are you tired of the oppressive rules and moderation of the big tech social media sites? Our Mastodon server at social.freetalklive.com can set you free. Mastodon is free, open source, decentralized, and federated. Multiple apps are available for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, and Linux. Social.freetalklive.com. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Mr. Penguin.
And Mark Edge.
And we already have a caller on the line, so I'm going to go to the phones. David in New Mexico, what are you going to grace us with speaking about tonight?
Is Alu's snack bar open yet?
No.
The what snack bar?
He wants Alu to open a, table at
snack bar. Got it.
Snack bar.
Alu snack bar.
I got it.
Yeah.
So pretty funny.
Bam, 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 bam. So those were falafels hitting Alu's food cart, food wagon, food truck.
It's at October 7th. It's a new one. It's a second October 7th. Falafels hitting Alu's snack bar. Oh, you just haven't memorized that date. It's the day that the Hamas attacked Israel. No one else knew that?
I don't memorize dates, Bonnie. That's you.
Yeah.
Nope.
I memorize dates. I also know my friend's birthday is the day after just because
I was scorched with 9/11, and that's about the only date I'll be able to repeat, probably.
Mm-hmm. And I know why you know it.
The dumbass, they attacked who?
No, Hamas.
He knew Bonnie wished me happy birthday before my mother did.
Well, your birthday is also the day I was in a car accident, so every time I see it, it's just like, oh, I know what day this is. Mark's birthday.
Oh, when is Mark's birthday?
I'm not going to say it on there. I won't say it on there.
Yeah, don't do it.
I know Mark's son's birthday, and I'm not going to say it on there, obviously, but it's just really easy for me.
So birthdays are one of the few identifying factors out there that make a person a person. So, I don't give away certain information.
Yeah, Ian doesn't want me to...
Mom's maiden name, things like that.
Ian does not want me to ever tell people, even like his friends, his birthday. And he said...
I have it on my calendar.
He doesn't want somebody to open a bank account in his name. No one can open a bank account in your name. You can't open a bank account in your name, Ian.
He's taking care of that problem, hasn't he?
He could just tell everybody his birthday at this point.
Oh, man.
His birthday is going to be in his court records.
Maybe, I don't know.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
They also just put up people's social security numbers in open court.
They did.
People in the Crypto 6 and quote unquote victims.
In fact, I think they have it on public record if you go and look through the court listener data, all that stuff.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
It was not good.
Yeah, no, it was actually really funny because they did censor it in court at some point, actually, I believe. And it was funny because this was later on, I believe, because I think initially they did not. And then later they did, at sentencing or something like that. Yeah. But in the meantime, they held all this information on the public database that's available.
So dumb.
To the public.
And Mark, it's a barefaced lie, not bold-faced lie or bald-faced lie, and you now owe Shakespeare royalties. Cough it up.
Yeah, that's right.
Is it really?
Yeah. Yes.
How do we know you're not bald-faced lying?
Because I have read Shakespeare, Bonnie.
Okay, so the thing is that AI isn't to be trusted, so I'm not saying that this is definitely true, but just...
Who said anything about AI, Bonnie?
No, listen, I googled bald-face or bare-face lie, and it says the correct idiom is bald-face lie, not bold-face lie
really?
or bare-face lie.
No. Well, actually, why don't you just actually read the text in Shakespeare's own words?
I just never knew this had anything to do with Shakespeare, so I don't like his stuff.
I don't know what I said. Did I say it was a bold-faced lie or a bald-faced lie?
And it says both of those are common and
I would have expected
acceptable.
boldface, but I don't know what you said.
That boldface.
Okay.
I think I say baldface. It says that baldface lie is the correct idiom, but barefaced lie is also a valid, albeit less common alternative.
Bold-faced lie is only correct if you're an idiot, not the correct idiom.
Of course.
Idiom.
Oh, you were saying
idiom,
bear
idiom,
like
that's right,
B-A-R-E.
yeah,
Sorry.
Idiom is the state of being an idiot. You're an idiom. You live in idiom.
Maybe it's more than one idiot.
Well, this also is just like a weird term anyway, because what does it mean to be bald-faced? Like, that's a lie from a person without
Barefaced.
eyebrows.
That's why it makes sense if
What does
you
it
use
mean?
the right word, Bonnie.
Well, this says barefaced is an older British English term that means the same thing as bald-faced lie. And as we were saying here,
I can explain
old
that, Bonnie.
English
Please
isn't
do.
important.
I can explain that, Bonnie.
Go ahead.
Because all the people living in idiom in this current day and age say bald face or bold face. Therefore, bald face or bold face means the same thing as the original, which is barefaced.
And definitions change.
Yeah, I mean, the word and languages change over time. So I honestly, if you had said bald face or bareface, I would have looked at you and been like,
Merriam,
you don't know the English language.
Yeah, Merriam-Webster kind of likes David's. So the current status of this trio of lie and liar descriptors is this. Both bold-faced and bald-faced are used, but bald-faced is decidedly the preferred term in published and edited text. Barefaced is the oldest and is still in use, but is the least common. To report otherwise would be a bald-faced lie.
I feel like if somebody said barefaced, it would not have the same impact because people would just be like, I'm unfamiliar with that. You said it wrong.
I would disagree that most people aren't looking, are just referencing in their heads anyway and don't know the idioms.
Mhm.
And that's why we have the bold-faced lie versus the bald-faced.
Maybe if you said barefaced lie, my brain would just auto-correct it to bald-faced lie, So maybe I wouldn't have even noticed, but I think we should just stick to saying that is a big fat lie.
I mean, I think everybody would know what you mean by saying barefaced lie, even if they didn't, regardless whether it was boldface or bareface or what was the other one.
Correct.
Yeah,
Bold and bared.
I think everybody would know what you mean because it's like, what else comes before that, right?
Bald is funniest.
Bald face is a lie. Is one that is obvious, unambiguous, and readily apparent, like the visage of a person unobscured by facial hair. Bald-faced is a pejorative term, as it is more specifically means shameless or brazen, which is the.
Which means like the same thing. Like it's like, oh, the audacity of this person to lie like this when it's so obvious. I don't know. It all sounds like the same thing.
I think David has taught us something here today.
What kind of lie? Paleface.
Yeah. White men speak with forked tongue.
Yeah. Speaking of that, when did slavery start in the Americas?
It wasn't at 1610. Okay.
All the Indians.
Oh, you're right. They did practice. Yep.
They took all of them. Every last.
I don't know if all of them did. I can't say that, but I can say that many charges.
I have read history.
Yep.
They all took slaves.
Yeah.
I've read history. Even the Mohawks.
You know what's interesting is the very first colonists, I think they tried to enslave the population and they couldn't for some reason.
Well, they could run away in a way that blacks couldn't.
Okay.
Who could run away?
Indians.
Why is that? Because they knew the terrain?
Faster.
Well, I mean, the time period probably would make.
Other than Jim
difference.
Thorpe, that is an obviously untrue statement.
I really don't understand I'm still confused. Why could they run away?
Sure. So
they knew the terrain?
Essentially they had some place to run to.
No trains back then, Bonnie.
They knew how to get to the train? No, that's not what I said. But the Africans were being enslaved in their territory too, so.
Sure.
They knew that terrain.
At least they in their territory they could run away, and they probably weren't being necessarily owned in the same way that sort of chattel slavery existed in the Americas.
Well, they were also being chased by people who were from there too. So
yes,
that's.
I mean, it was a conquest of war too. So that's what they did. This is. I think people don't understand. This is throughout history. The conquerors enslaved the populations that they conquered.
Very common, yeah.
I've done it more than once now, not just with English and Irish.
Enslave somebody?
No. Where I've went to ChatGPT and said...
Curious how you get away with this.
I went to ChatGPT. I mean, I guess one could say that I am Ian's slave master. No, I'm just kidding. He's totally the slave driver. That was a joke.
Yes.
So anyways, I went to ChatGPT and said, historically, who was worse to the other? And put different people that fought, and it'll actually give you that was something I was surprised it wasn't all woke and trying to be weird about. It'll just straight up tell you its opinion.
Yeah,
except at the Holocaust. If you say who's worse, like Hitler or Mussolini, they'll be like, worse is subjective.
I thought there was only one Holocaust.
Well, wait a minute.
There were other pogroms.
So it was a Holocaust when. Supposedly, 6 million Jews were killed. What is it called when 60 million Russian Christians were killed? What is that then?
Well, I would not claim that one is, I would not claim that 60 million is somehow better than 6, but we don't use the term Holocaust to describe it. Don't they have other terms?
I don't genocide.
Genocide, yeah, that's what I think of.
Is it genocide though? I mean, were the Christians killed because they were Christian? Because they were Russian?
Well, actually, the allegation is that the Bolsheviks were primarily Jewish, and the 60 million were 90% Christian.
So Stalin definitely not Jewish.
No, Stalin. The allegation is Stalin was Jewish. Yes.
No, I don't think so.
Well,
I don't know about that honestly.
All right.
Research it.
Well, if let's put it this way, if he was raised Jewish, I don't think he considered himself a Jew, because why would you kill your own?
Yeah, I just heard Alex Jones. I think it was talking.
Wait, it's Chris. What are you saying?
Well, what I'm saying is, if he killed people who were Jewish and he was raised Jewish,
who said that Stalin killed Jews?
Well, I know that they escaped to Israel.
You guys are saying?
No. Stalin killed Christians because they were Christian, and he's Jewish. Is the allegation? I'm not claiming that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Not they didn't kill them because they were Christian.
Yep.
But they were those that were killed were the vast majority Christian.
Okay.
And those doing the killing, meaning the Bolsheviks, were a Jewish-controlled organization.
All right. I have not heard this allegation. I've lived 54 years, never heard it. So
what is Trotsky? What group?
Trotsky sounds Jewish. Yep.
What is Lenin?
I don't
have an answer for that.
Sounds just like somewhere in Eastern Europe to me.
I'm very bad at this game, and I will admit that I'm very bad at this game. The guess their religion or ethnicity by the last name. I thought a guy named Shapiro was Italian. I get it. I'm bad at this. So,
that is a pretty unique one, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think I would have messed up.
Well, I just didn't know.
I'm bad too, but I don't think I'm that bad.
Speaking of that, Mark, you said earlier in the program that radio host Shapiro was protected by those that the powers that be, and you, being the exact same thing as Shapiro, were failed to be protected by the powers that be. And let's see now, what does Shapiro identify with, and who are the powers that be?
I don't have any answers. I've heard this. The same speculation's been made in the past. And
by what, Chris Cantwell?
No, it was a listener. I don't know. I don't have any proof of this other than Ben Shapiro's last name is Shapiro.
I don't really
That's
see
all
any
I got.
proof that the FBI specifically protects Jewish people or that they are Jewish. I don't know.
Ben Shapiro says he's Jewish.
Yeah.
Wait, really?
He is, yeah. He's openly Jewish. He's
a
Jewish person.
Interesting.
I'm just saying what my point was actually about the other side. The other side is that are cops more likely to be Jewish? I've never heard that.
No.
FBI more likely to be Jewish?
I don't think a guy named I know the last name of the the guy that has a vendetta against Ian, and it is decidedly not Jewish.
Yeah, that's true.
Italian would be my guess.
Who
Christiana.
has a vendetta against Ian?
Phil Christiana.
Oh, I see.
It's an FBI agent who's been attacking Free Staters since longer than Ian's been in New Hampshire, decades.
Right, got it. And that's another question I've never heard the answer to. If you want to talk about this kind of thing, so what was the population of people that were Jewish in what was Germany and nearby in 1938, say?
I don't know. Is this going to be, let's do some math and see whether 6 million Jews were killed?
Well, that would be a logical thing. The claim is 6 million, and it's a little bit hard to believe
that's a large percentage if it is.
There were 6 million, and it's even harder to believe you could round up 6 million.
Wait. 6 million, but was that in Germany or was that across Europe? Because they killed.
That's why I said in Germany and thereabouts, because these camps where they were supposedly all killed were, in Poland and Germany, and was there one in Czech? I don't know.
It seems much more plausible, though, the 6 million throughout Europe, not 6 million in Germany, because 6 million in Germany at the time, I think, would have been a huge portion of their population would have been Jewish.
Why would they only bring up how many were killed in Germany? I'm sure it was like all of them, right?
Right. Wasn't it, wasn't Anne, whatever her name was, in... And Frank,
right. Now I got to look up what the German population is, because I thought today it's like, I don't know, 40 million or something. Like
memory isn't the greatest thing, but I thought when I was a kid that they taught us that 1 million Jews were killed. Now, I'm not saying that that's true, but that's what I remember.
Maybe it was 1 million in Germany or something like that, and 6 million throughout Europe or something.
I mean, it could also be that you were located.
I looked it up on ChatGPT just because. Okay. I had this question, right? Was I taught to and ChatGPT was very adamant that in fact the number 6 million has been largely the number since the 40s. And
we've always been at war with Oceania.
That's right. That's what it felt like.
I don't know. That's an interesting thing, because the thing is, like, I've been really adamant about a belief and then been proven absolutely wrong by like another person that was there or whatever.
All right. Okay, so ChatGPT says there are... Why is it... No, not German Canadians.
How many German Canadians are there?
I don't know, but that's not what I wanted to know.
No,
Here, population of Germany is 83 million today. Population of Germany in 1938 was...
Whole population or Jewish population?
The whole population, 78 million. So 6 million out of 78 million. That's a pretty good number. It's a smaller percentage than I thought, but yeah. Let's see. So what do we want to know? How many were killed during the war? Let's see. How many Jews were killed during World War?
No, I meant Germans. German men. How many German men died during World War II?
How many?
Probably 10 million.
How many Germans killed World War II? Here we go. All right. So the answer is, how many Germans were killed in World War II? The answer is 5.3 million is the estimate of German military personnel died during World War II. So
I don't know. One thing about remembering it being 1 million, but really it was 6 million, that kind of comes to mind is like, I don't know, as a young kid being like, oh, it was like a big number, like 1 million,
I have a better. So hold on, David. So I recently ended up going to dinner with an ex-girlfriend an ex-friend from high school, from high school.
Oh, baby.
And she, I reminded her of the evening that we drove around a friend drove around the car, and she was and we were necking, right? And she said,
"You're naked?"
That totally didn't happen. I had misremembered. She was the friend driving the car.
Oh, no.
And it was her friend who I was kissing on.
But you were like, oh, I wish it was the one driving the car.
That was how I was. Absolutely felt that way.
And
she's like, wow, memory is a crazy thing. That did not happen.
Wow.
And you were naked?
What's that? I was not naked.
You didn't say naked. And we were naked. Like, say it like that specifically. No.
Neckin'.
Well, like, kind of the same thing.
Like you and Marissa Tomei, David.
Oh, you bet it, baby. You got it. That was one steamy evening.
He claims Marissa Tomei wanted him.
She wanted me bad. Bonnie. Bad.
Yep. You know, a woman's got to have what a woman's got to have.
Memory's a crazy thing.
That's what she told me, Bonnie.
Okay, well, thanks for the call, David.
Well, I have an answer for everybody on the how many German Jews were killed in World War II. So it was somewhere between 160,000 and 180,000. So
I wonder where most of them came from. Can we find out real quick what's going to happen with Trump in a third term?
Oh, yeah, we can totally talk about that. That was something we definitely told our listeners we were going to talk about.
We like to tease them, but not actually give them the results.
That's mean.
It's kind of our thing.
So, from NBCnews.com, the headline says, Trump won't rule out seeking a third term in the White House. It's so funny. It's just reading that is so funny, but also terrifying. It says, Trump won't rule out seeking a third term in the White House, tells NBC News there are methods for doing so.
I mean, Trump won't roll out becoming dictator for life either,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
Trump won't rule out taking Greenland by force, military force.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to take anything seriously. You know, it's like
Trump hasn't ruled out turning Gaza into a beach resort.
It's a beach, right?
Yeah.
This could be nice.
So it says in the
dig up all the landmines.
He's just reserving his, reserving his right to change his mind effectively.
I think he's, so I was kind of grumpy with Obama with the birth certificate thing, because the birth certificate that Hawaii released, the long form or whatever, didn't look anything like my birth certificate. And that just added fuel to the fire. And this is what Trump's doing is he's adding fuel to what he would think of as liberal media fire. And the fact that he won't rule out a third term is just giving them something to, look, we've got him finally. He's a dictator, just like we said. This is the last election.
I find it so entertaining to watch the left freak out over Trump's, actions. And it's like most of the stuff he's doing isn't going to stick. And he hasn't really done anything that makes me think that the world is going to come to a, situation where he takes over as a dictator, right? Like I get where they're going, but it's more or less freaking out over nothing. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's doing stuff, that's kind of okay, that's kind of bad.
Well, they can't say the things that they're really thinking, which is if he gets more Supreme Court justices, we're really screwed.
Yeah.
And Trump, his first term did some amazing things as far as Supreme Court justices went.
Yeah,
I hope Doge finds 10% of the waste in Washington, D.C. I hope it does. Yeah, Wouldn't that be amazing?
I'm just in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I don't think it's going to come to much. I think these people are just going to end up, he's going to lay them off, but they're going to end up coming right back, right?
Sure, they'll probably get a lawsuit that says that we were fired or whatever.
It doesn't seem like it's enough. It doesn't seem like it's going to be enough, the stuff that Doge is cutting out. But one thing, back to the Trump third term thing that Riley pointed out to me before the show was, well, if Trump is successful, and if this isn't just a joke or a foil or whatever, if he's successful and he does a third term, I'm sure there are plenty of people in America that would support that and vote for him again, or maybe voting isn't necessary, but it would open up, if there really are methods and he uses those methods, it would open up things like Obama third term.
I mean, this is in the Constitution. So to effectively do this, you'd have to change the Constitution, right?
Right. There are means. To getting it done.
Yeah,
but it's not going to.
And it's a state by state thing anyway. So you would have to also go through each one of the states, and
it's not going to happen.
Yeah, because let's say that somehow. He's able to get some states to put him on the ballot or whatever. There's going to be enough states that don't put him on the ballot where he's not going to win enough states.
It's a watch the birdie thing. Don't look at what I am doing.
Yeah.
Look at this. I could go for a third term thing.
Yeah.
And it's a news story that gets people paying attention. It gets me paying attention because I think he might be loony enough to try it. But it's a bad idea. And now when I think about it, I'm just like, no, this is just more 4D chess, if that's what we're going to call this. And he's trying to get people who are otherwise going to be angry about something else to be angry about this.
He says, a lot of people want me to do it.
I'll bet they do.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
I like how a lot of the way, the ways he talks about what he's doing is, everybody I've talked to wants me to do a third term. You know, it's like a lot of people. What's
That's
a lot?
more like bragging, though, not necessarily saying you're going to, do it. I don't know.
Is that 20 people, or is that, a majority in each state want me to do it, you know?
Yeah, somehow I doubt
subjective.
it. Yeah.
So it's been Free Talk Live. You can go to freetalklive.com for more and check us out there and hear more next weekend. Thanks for listening to Free Talk Live, and peace.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very